votes seem to be more of something that I've seen while it's been X over over what it was with Twitter, but holy Christ. Like just the outright nonsense that I see. Like it used to be just left wing crazies. Now it's left wing crazies, right wing crazies, and people who think the earth is flat crazies. Plus the bots. Like
Yeah.
holy crap, dude. Like
And lots of porn.
Wait, the Earth isn't flat?
There's a shit pile of porn too now.
It's hollow.
Yeah,
We
there's
all know
porno.
it's hollow.
And like it is real Stardust posted something about this yesterday. It is really creepy knowing that porn is specifically being circulated because dudes are no longer using their alts. They're just straight up engaging with it on their main accounts.
part one, yes.
Oh, wow.
Part two is that I guess because Pornhub is now blocked in like half the red states, they just, take to Twitter.
Get it where you get it, I guess. Okay. With that, we're going to kind of winnow it down to the people who I specifically reached out to and talked to. There will be a semi-open React panel after this that you are all welcome to join. But for now, I'm going to start winnowing the group. So give me a moment. Okay.
All right, tell me, is the stream working for you guys?
Yes, can you guys see that, dear viewers on YouTube and on Kick? Can't hear it quite yet, but that's fine because we don't need to right now.
Oh, well, I don't. Well, I just want to test it.
We don't. Yeah, we can hear it. The test
Okay, cool.
worked. Before we begin though, and I'm gonna close watching your stream for now, just so we can talk. Right, but keep it on, keep watching when it
I got you.
starts. Just let me know. Does anyone know where Lactoid is? First of all,
No.
None.
I'll DM him. Okay,
Good questions.
what are we looking for tonight? What do you think will happen? What do you think needs to happen? What does each candidate need to do or convey to best help their election, to best win over voters? What are your initial impressions, or not initial impressions, but what are your initial thoughts going into this? What do you expect to see? We're gonna start with the Doghouse Show, and we're gonna work it our way around. But what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so I think that what we're going to see from Donald Trump is he's not going to be able to stick to a policy position. I think what we're going to see is he's going to be focusing primarily on the debate itself and how unfair it is. I expect to see when a question is asked, a dodge comes from it and it goes on to what he wants to talk about, which likely has to do with immigration. I think we're seeing a lot of talk about immigration come from Donald Trump, whether it's asked or not. I think we're going to see a lot about some of the lack of Kamala's policies, even though I disagree with that sentiment. I think that's what's going to come from Donald Trump. I think we're going to see Kamala Harris do really well on policy and sticking with that. I think she's going to try to throw some zingers. The question is whether those zingers come off as cringe or whether those zingers actually stick. It is a possibility of a 50-50 split of it being one or the other. I think this is all for Kamala Harris to win, but it could also be hers to lose if she comes off a little too cringy and trying to fit in a little bit too youthful.
And I want to, again, we got about 5 minutes before this is scheduled to start. They usually start a little late, right? So it's not entirely right, but conciseness is what I'm looking for here. So Sansol, same thing. What are your thoughts? What do you think each candidate needs to do? What do you expect will happen? Give us your thoughts.
Kamala needs to get Donald Trump to call her the N-word. I think that should be her only goal tonight. After that, really, like Doghouse said, it is Kamala's to lose. Donald Trump is definitely the underdog going into the debate in terms of who's going to win the debate. I think that it's Donald Trump's going to go up there. He's going to try and do his usual shenanigans. He's not going to say anything of any fucking value whatsoever. He's not going to say anything of any substance. And then all the conservatives are going to heel clap along with him. So let's watch.
Okay. Lactoid, so you weren't here for this, but the question at hand is what does each candidate need to do and what do you expect will occur? Go ahead.
Yeah, do you hear me okay?
Yep, you're fine. You're doing great, buddy.
All right. So what does each candidate need to do? I don't know. I think that Donald Trump just needs to just do his thing as he always does. I don't expect him to do anything more, anything less. I think Kamala will do fine. I actually do agree with the prediction Rob made, Rob Noor. He said that he predicts Kamala is going to probably do a little bit better. That's probably true. But it's also possible that she could shit the bed, I guess, if she locks up or says something really dumb or tries to go for like a I'm speaking when nobody's speaking. That could probably be a memeable moment. So as long as she avoids memeable moments, I think she'll be okay.
Okay, Gibbs, thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, someone brought up the border earlier. I really hope that, in the words of like a Houston legend, Jim Adler, that Trump just hammers her on the fucking border like repeatedly, over and over, especially with the new Front Island stuff that's happened
Sorry,
like
I don't
in
mean
the
to
last 48
interrupt.
hours.
Like Jim Adler do what?
He hammers the
Okay, yeah, sorry. It peaked so much. I thought I was like, wait, he didn't even say hammer. Okay, go on.
Yeah, yeah, it's the whole thing. Sorry, anyway. But yeah, so I hope they just like hits her on the border repeatedly. I think he needs to do that. I think he should talk about his time in office. Kamala, I mean, really, I think for her keys to win, she needs to lay out some policy. Like, I feel like people don't really understand what is her, right? Like, I feel like that would be a good thing for her to do. As far as Trump, I think the muting the mics thing helps him quite a bit. I mean, maybe it'll cut down on his off the cuffs. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I think maybe keys to victory for Trump is don't call her the N-word. That's the key.
Don't call her the N-word. That's the key. I love it. I love the commentary from Gibbs. Thank you. Last but certainly not least, well, it will be me, but average debate enjoyer. Tyler, what do you have?
So, as a residential moderate and
Remember
centrist,
concise. Remember
Okay,
concise.
gotcha.
A minute and 30
Well, we're look-
seconds. Yeah,
what we're looking
go
for
ahead.
both of the candidates, we're looking for Kamala to define herself, and we're looking for Trump to try to define her. She's the unknown. Trump's had 4 years of incumbency already. We already know what he's going to do. We don't know if Kamala is going to be a repeat of Biden, if she's going to be something out of the Obama coalition, based on some of the people she's brought in, or we don't know if she's going to be her 2020 political instincts from inner Democrat policies. We're going to look for defining Kamala and Trump just not blowing it.
No N-word, no blowing. Okay, Trump has his marching orders. So for
You got
my
60 seconds.
yeah, for my we can't have another debate like it was the last time. If Kamala shits the bed, if she flubs this and fucks it up, I don't know. That's a huge problem. She needs to at least do as good as Trump, right? She needs to break even, right?
Yeah.
I think that ideally she would communicate, right? Because a lot of people are looking at her for the first time, right? But I think the stream's about to start, so we're going to transition to watching that. Try to keep interruptions during the stream itself to a minimum, though we will be commenting as they go. Afterwards is when we're going to get to react, baby, and that's what we're going to get to go. So let's transition to that.
I'm going to crank the volume all the way up so you guys can adjust it yourself, okay?
Are we streaming it through Discord?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Oh,
I don't see anything.
it's just click watch stream.
Gotcha.
The debate starts. We will join it. ABC News is
Okay.
broadcasting.
Mute these guys. We'll
in its entirety.
I don't care about
at the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia.
yeah,
want me to mute?
until mute those
Okay,
guys
gotcha.
until the actual debate starts, right?
Yeah.
I don't care about their commentary.
Can
right?
I just say, like, one of the things that as a lib left cuck boy, okay, that's really terrifying here is that the Democrats get held to unbelievable standards. Trump can go up there and like say ooga booga, and literally no one will fucking care. He could just sit there and stammer for like half of the fucking debate about too many brown people coming.
I think it's
from
back on
the-
Sansel.
Oh, are we starting? Oh, hell yeah, let's go.
Around the world tonight. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump are just moments away from taking the stage in this unprecedented race for president.
And I'm Lindsay Davis. Tonight's meeting could be the most consequential event of their campaigns, with Election Day now less than 2 months away. For Vice President Kamala Harris, this is her first debate since President Biden.
I'm assuming these are the moderators.
July 21st.
Yeah.
Of course,
Okay.
that decision followed his debate against President Donald Trump in June. Since then, this race has taken on an entirely new dynamic.
And that brings us to the rules of tonight's debate. 90 minutes with 2 commercial breaks. No topics or questions have been shared with the campaigns. The candidates will have 2 minutes to answer questions, and this is the clock. That's what they'll be seeing. 2 minutes for rebuttals.
That's big.
And 1 minute for follow-ups, clarifications, or
It's for Trump.
responses.
Well, they're old.
Will
They
only
got
be turned on when it's their turn to speak. No pre-written notes allowed. There is no audience here tonight in this hall at the National Constitution Center. This is an intimate setting for 2 candidates who have never met.
President Trump won the coin toss. He chose to deliver the final closing statement of the evening. Vice President Harris selected the podium to the right.
So let's now welcome the candidates to the stage. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Donald Trump.
let's go.
Are they going to shake hands?
Oh,
She.
went to
Oh,
shake his
oh,
hand.
wow. She went all
She
the way
went
over.
first.
How
'Cause he wasn't
classy.
going to.
How classy.
It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
So let's get started. I want to begin tonight with the issue that voters repeatedly say is their #1 issue, and that is the economy and the cost of living in this country. Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years
Starting
ago?
with the economy.
So I was raised as a middle class kid. And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people. And that is why I imagine and have actually a plan to build what I call an opportunity economy. Because here's the thing. We know that we have a shortage of homes and housing, and the cost of housing is too expensive for far too many people. We know that young families need support to raise their children, and I intend on extending a tax cut for those families of $6,000, which is the largest child tax credit that we have given in a long time, so that those young families can afford to buy a crib, buy a car seat, buy clothes for their children. My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to start up small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy. My opponent, on the other hand, his plan is to do what he has done before, which is to provide a tax cut for billionaires and big corporations, which will result in $5 trillion to America's deficit. My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because it was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. we were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago. This has been a disaster for people, for the middle class, but for every class. On top of that, we have millions of people pouring into our country from prisons and jails, from mental institutions and insane asylums, and they're coming in and they're taking jobs that are occupied right now by African Americans and Hispanics, and also unions. Unions are going to be affected very soon. And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that Xi and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality, and we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast. I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate.
We gotta.
I would like to let Vice President Harris respond.
He did it! Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression. Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century. Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
She's cooking them.
And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess. What we have done and what I intend to do is build on what we know are the aspirations and the hopes of the American people. But I'm going to tell you all in this debate tonight, you're going to hear from the same old tired playbook, a bunch of lies, grievances, and name calling. What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed
Claim to lie. Take a drink.
plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again. I believe very strongly that the American people want a president who understands the importance of bringing us together, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. And I pledge to you to be a president for all Americans.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025. That's out there. I haven't read it. I don't want to read it purposely. I'm not going to read it. This was a group of people that got together. They came up with some ideas.
That's because he can't read.
Bad, but it makes no difference. I have nothing to do. Everybody knows I'm an open book. Everybody knows what I'm going to do. Cut taxes very substantially and create a great economy like I did before. We had the greatest economy. We got hit with a pandemic, and the pandemic was not since 1917, where 100 million people died, has there been anything like it. We did a phenomenal job with the pandemic. We handed them over a country with the economy.
Did 100 million people?
Market was higher than it was before the pandemic came in. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
Don't think
we made ventilators
100 million.
for the entire world. We got gowns.
That's a
we
third
got
of our
masks,
population,
we did
guys.
things that nobody thought possible. And people give me credit for rebuilding the military. They give me credit for a lot of things, but not enough credit for the great job we did with the pandemic. But the only jobs they got were bounce back jobs. These were jobs bounce back, and it bounced back and it went to their benefit. But I was the one that created them. They know it, and so does everybody else.
Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond.
So Donald Trump has no plan for you. And when you look at his economic plan, it's all about tax breaks for the richest people. I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy. What the Wharton School has said is Donald Trump's plan would actually explode the deficit. 16 Nobel laureates have described his economic plan as something that would increase inflation and by the middle of next year would invite a recession. You just have to look at where we are and where we stand on the issues. And I'd invite you to know that Donald Trump actually has no plan for you because he is more interested in defending himself than he is in looking out for you.
It's just a soundbite. They gave her that to say. Look, I went to the Wharton School of Finance.
They forgot to unmute his mic.
Professors, the top professors, think my plan is a brilliant plan. It's a great plan. It's a plan that's going to bring up our worth, our value as a country. It's going to make people want to be able to go and work and create jobs and create a lot of good, solid money for our country. And just to finish off, she doesn't have a plan. She copied Biden's plan.
Told you.
Like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run. 4 sentences that are just,
Called
we'll
it.
try and lower taxes. She doesn't have a plan. Take a look at her plan. She doesn't have a plan.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President.
They're drilling.
Your tariffs, you responded, and let's drill down on this because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Vice President Harris has argued it'll mean higher prices on gas, food, clothing, medication, arguing it
Can y'all
costs
hear me? Oh, y'all can hear my mic. I didn't know that.
a year.
I didn't know y'all could hear
Do
my
you
mic.
believe
I'm sorry, guys.
Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have and who's going to have higher prices is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. I was the only president ever. China was paying us hundreds of billions of dollars, and so were other countries. And, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. We are going to take in billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything
That's because
else.
of you, Trump. That's because of you.
People of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy. And all you have to do is look at a poll. The polls say 80 and 85 and even 90% that the Trump economy was great, that their economy was terrible.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
That's a good
Well,
follow-up.
let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America. He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century, which means focusing on the details of what that requires, focusing on relationships with
claim.
allies, focusing on investing in American-based technology so that we win the race on AI, on quantum computing, focusing on what we need to do to support America's workforce so that we don't end up having on the short end of the stick in terms of workers'
What's up,
rights.
Doom Machine?
But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point. When we know that she
Bringing up tweets?
responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
President Trump, I'll let you respond.
First of all, they bought their chips from Taiwan. We hardly make chips anymore because of philosophies like they have and policies like they have. I don't say her because she has no policy. Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy. But if she ever got elected, she'd change it. And it will be the end of our country. She's a Marxist. Everybody knows she's a Marxist. Her father's a Marxist professor in economics, and he taught her well. But when you look at what she's done to our country, and
One's in chat if you think Kamala's a Marxist. What's in chat?
monthly, where it's, I believe, 21 million people, not
Oh, I got
15
Wes
that
and
people
Demon in the
say,
same room.
and I
Welcome,
think it's
guys.
a lot higher than the 21. That's bigger than New York State pouring in. And just look at what they're doing to our country. They're criminals. Many of these people coming in are criminals.
He's pivoting to immigration again.
Too. You know, you mentioned
It's
before,
his
we talked about
main
immigration.
his main talking point, absolutely.
Immigration is the worst thing that can happen to our economy. They have, and she has, destroyed our country with policy that's insane. Almost policy that you'd say they have to hate our country.
President Trump, thank you. Lindsay?
I want to turn to the issue of abortion. President Trump, you've often touted that you were able to kill Roe v. Wade. Last year, you said that you were proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Then last month, you said that your administration would be great for women and their reproductive rights. In your home state of Florida, you surprised many with regard to your 6-week abortion ban, because you initially had said that it was too short. And you said, quote, I'm going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks. But then the very next day, you reversed course and said you would vote to support the 6-week ban. Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of
Let me know
West
if that's good,
Virginia,
Damon.
not the current governor, is doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby. And that's why I did that, because that predominates, because they're radical. The Democrats are radical in that. And her vice presidential pick, which I think was a horrible pick, by the way, for our country, because he is really out of it. But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote. But what I did is something for 52 years. They've been trying to get Roe v. Wade into the states. And through the genius and heart
After birth baby executions.
Supreme Court
That's his point.
justices were able to
The 9th month thing, though, is right.
exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly in it. Ronald Reagan did also. 85% of Republicans do. Exceptions. Very important. But we were able to get it, and now states are voting on it. And for the first time, you're going to see, look, this is an issue that's torn our country apart for 52 years. Every legal scholar, every Democrat, every Republican, liberal, conservative, they all wanted this issue to be brought back to the states where the people could vote. And that's what happened. And now, Ohio, the vote was somewhat liberal. Kansas, the vote was somewhat liberal, much more liberal than people would have thought. But each individual state is voting. It's the vote of the people now. It's not tied up in the federal government. I did a great service in doing it. It took courage to do it. And the Supreme Court had great courage in doing it. And I give tremendous credit to those 6 justices.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to it.
She stepped in. And that's not actually a surprising fact.
She knows Kamala's getting bashed, and she has to I got you, girl.
Selected.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't imply that.
Supreme Court with the intention that they would.
Let's see if she fact checks Kamala at all.
And they did exactly as he intended.
She needs water.
Now, in over 20 states, there are Trump abortion bans, which make it criminal for a doctor or nurse to provide health care. In one state, it provides prison for life. Trump abortion bans that make no exception even for rape and incest, which understand what that means. A survivor of a crime of violation to their body does not have the right to make a decision about what happens to their body next. That is immoral. And one does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body.
Yeah, Wes,
I have
I know.
talked with women
I just looked up
around
the Tim
our
Walz thing,
country.
and
You
it's-
want to
there's
talk
some
about this is
nuance
what
there.
people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot.
Huge point.
She didn't want that. Her husband didn't want that. A
Huge win.
13-year-old survivor of incest being forced to carry a pregnancy to term. They don't want that. And I pledge to you, when Congress passes a bill to put back in place the protections of Roe v. Wade. As President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. But understand, if Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages. I think the American people believe that certain freedoms, in particular the freedom to make decisions about one's own body, should not be made by the government.
Thank you, Vice President Harris.
Where's the fact check on that?
Again, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I'm not
Well, I
signing
mean,
a ban.
I'm sure we'll
Reason
see.
to sign a ban because
Trump is not tied in any way to Project 2025.
Yeah, where's the fact check on that?
Is shut the fuck up.
He's not.
And every legal scholar wanted it to be brought back into the states, and the states are voting. And it may take a little time, but for 52 years, this issue has torn our country apart, and they've wanted it back in the states. And I did something that nobody thought was possible. The states are now voting. What she says is an absolute
He
lie.
ain't wrong.
And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well, I
to your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress.
I
She'll never get the
want
vote.
him to
It's
answer that
impossible
question.
for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, and essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. You know what it reminds me of when they said they're going to get student loans?
No, I really want him to answer that question.
It ended up being a total catastrophe. The student loans, and then her, I think probably her boss, if you call him a boss, he spends all his time on the beach. But look, her boss went out and said, we'll do it again. We'll do it a different way. And he went out, got rejected again by the Supreme Court. So all these students got taunted with this whole thing about this whole idea and how unfair that would have been. Part of the reason they lost to the millions and millions of people that had to pay off their student loans. They didn't get it for free, but they were saying it's the same way that they talked about that.
Why isn't he answering that question?
But if I could just get a yes or no, because your running mate, J.D. Vance, has said that you would veto it if you.
I am mad I'm not
Well, I
moderating this
didn't
debate.
discuss it with J.D. In all fairness, J.D. And I don't mind if he has a certain view, but I think he was speaking for me. But I really didn't. Look, we don't have to discuss it because she'd never be able to get it, just like she couldn't get student loans. They couldn't get student loans.
Answer the damn question.
Can't answer the question. He won't answer the question.
Young
He don't
people
want
and
to.
a lot of other people that had loans. They can never get this approved. So it doesn't matter what she says about going to Congress. Well, wonderful. Let's go to Congress, do it. But the fact is that for years they wanted to get it out of Congress and out of the federal government. And we did something that everybody said couldn't be done. And now you have a vote of the people on
This is
abortion.
bad.
Vice President Harris, want to give you your time to respond, but I do want to ask, would you support any restrictions?
He should just say no because his answer otherwise was fine.
Absolutely support
Absolutely, he should just say
reinstating
no.
the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America. And understand what has been happening under Donald Trump's abortion bans. Couples who pray and dream of having a family are being denied IVF treatments. What is happening in our country? Working people, working women who
she's
are
going
working
there.
one or two jobs, who can barely afford childcare as it is, have to travel to another state to get on a plane sitting next to strangers to go and get the health care she needs. Barely can afford to do it, and what you are putting her through is unconscionable. And the people of America have not, the majority of Americans believe in a woman's right to make decisions about her own body. And that is why in every state where this issue has been on the ballot, in red and blue states both, the people of America have voted for freedom.
Vice President Harris,
Excuse me, I
thank
have
you.
to respond. Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization.
Lie accusation. Take a
I
drink.
have been a leader. In fact, when they
still a
got
leader,
a very
guys.
negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF. And the other thing,
Trump, fertilization leader.
will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th
He's a
month,
natural
10th month?
aphrodisiac.
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question?
Hold on. She should answer this question too.
Could do
She should answer this question.
Tell him.
the 8th month, the 9th
There we go, Trump.
and probably after birth. Just look at the governor, former governor of Virginia.
Why is your fucking mic not muted?
You said we put
Yeah,
the
I know what
baby
happened to Mike
aside, and then
muting.
we
That didn't
determined
work very
what
well.
Trump.
with the baby.
They're like Mike Mutin. That's not content.
Turn now to immigration. And
She didn't answer.
we know
Hold on. No, make her answer the question. Neither of them answered the question.
in this country.
Wow.
You were
She's running from that question.
Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration.
Oh, he's salivating now.
President Biden imposed tough new asylum restrictions. We know the numbers since then have dropped significantly. But my question to you tonight is, why did the administration wait until 6 months before the election to act? And would you have done anything differently from President Biden on this?
So I'm the only person on this stage who has prosecuted transnational criminal organizations for the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. And let me say that the United States Congress, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, came up with a border security bill, which I supported. And that bill would have put 1,500 more border agents on the border to help those folks who are working there right now overtime, trying to do their job. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States. I know there are so many families watching tonight who have been personally affected by the surge of fentanyl in our country. That bill would have put more resources to
stealing his
allow us
lines.
to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And understand, this comes at a time where the people of our country actually need a leader who engages in solutions, who actually addresses the problems at hand. But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised. And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters.
Bring your bulletproof vest.
He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom. And I will tell you, the one thing you will not hear him talk about is you. You will not hear him talk about your needs, your dreams, and your desires. And I'll tell you, I believe you deserve a president who actually puts you first, and I pledge to you that I will.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, on that point,
Straight up called his rallies boring.
let me just ask, though, why did you try to kill that bill, and successfully so? That would have put thousands of additional agents and officers on the border.
First, let me respond as to the rallies. She
Oh.
said people go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them
cares
in
about
and
them
paying them
rallies?
to be there and then showing them in a different light. So she can't talk about that. People don't leave my rallies. We have the biggest rallies, the most incredible rallies in the history of politics. That's because people want to take their country back. Our country is being lost. We're a failing nation. And it happened 3.5 years ago. And what's going on here, you're going to end up in World War III, just to go into another subject. What they have done to our country by allowing these millions and millions of people.
Man, I'm going to file a lawsuit for whiplash. Holy shit.
To the towns all over the United States. And a lot of towns don't want to talk. It's not going to be Aurora or Springfield. A lot of towns don't want to talk about it because they're so embarrassed by it. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats.
Oh my God!
The dogs.
What's going on?
So fucked.
That
He's so fucked.
He's telling him.
He's so down bad, dude.
He's just keep hammering the immigration. He's hammering.
Lola, run!
As
They're coming to get you.
The reason they go is they
Run.
Oh, man.
They want to bring our country back. They want to make America great again. It's a very simple phrase. Make America great again. She's destroying this country. And if she becomes president, this country doesn't have a chance of success. Not only success, we'll end up being Venezuela on steroids.
I just want to.
That's right. That's goddamn right.
And ABC News did reach out to the city manager.
Damn, Gibbs, you're coping hard right now.
This is content, baby.
It's being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals.
This is what I wanted him to do.
Community. All
I've
this.
seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is the
people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
But
television.
the people
I'm
on
taking it from
television
the city
saying their
manager.
dog was eaten by the people that went there.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice
We'll
President
find
Harris,
out.
I'll let you respond to the rest of what you said.
Find out, motherfucker.
You know, this is
Ooh, that was cringe.
why in this election, I actually have the endorsement of 200 Republicans who have formerly worked with President Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain, including the endorsement of former Vice President
That's a lie. Bush didn't endorse her.
member Liz Cheney. And if
I'm still reeling from his answer just now. Sorry.
on who the former president is, if he didn't make it clear already, just ask people who have worked with him. His former chief of staff, a 4-star general, has said he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. His former national security advisor has said he is dangerous and unfit. His former Secretary of Defense has said the nation, the republic, would never survive another Trump term.
Don't get eaten, little Lila. Don't get eaten.
To this kind of rhetoric, when the issues that affect the American people are not being addressed, I think the choice is clear in this election.
President Trump, I'll give you a quick minute to respond
Yeah.
here.
Thank you, because when I hear that, see, I'm a different kind of a person. I fired most of those people, not so graciously. They did bad things or a bad job. I fired them. They never fired one person. They didn't fire anybody having to do with Afghanistan and the Taliban and the 13 people who's were just killed, viciously and violently killed. And I got to know the parents and the family. They didn't fire. They should have fired all those generals, all those top people, because that was one of the most incompetently handled situations anybody has ever seen. So when somebody does a bad job, I fire him. And you take a guy like Esper. He was no good. I fired him. So he writes a book. Another one writes a book, because with me, they can write books. With nobody else can they? But they have done such a poor job, and they never fire anybody. Look at the economy. Look at the inflation. They didn't fire any of their economists. They have the same people. That's a good way not to have books written about you. But just to finish, I got more votes than any Republican in history by far. In fact, I got more votes than any president, sitting president in history by far.
Except for one.
Well, yeah. You on immigration. It was what you wanted to talk about earlier. So let's get back to your deportation proposal that the.
Are there no commercial breaks in this motherfucker?
President Trump.
I think they said 2.
Largest domestic deportation operation in the history of our country.
I got thoughts.
Use the National Guard. You say if things get out of control, you'd have no problem using the U.S. military.
Police, yes.
You also said you would use local police. How would you deport 11 million undocumented immigrants? I know you believe that number is much higher. Take us through this. What does this look like? Will authorities be going door to door in this country?
Yeah, it is much higher because of them. They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. And they're now in the United States and told by their countries like Venezuela, don't ever come back or we're going to kill you. Do you know that crime in Venezuela and crime in countries all over the world is way down? You know why? Because they've taken their criminals off the street and they've given them to her to put into our country. And this will be one of the great
crime in America is also down.
To allow, and I think they probably
2023 was up from 2022,
but it's not worth it.
We don't have the full 2024 numbers.
The fabric of our country by what they've done. There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in, and all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here. Crime here is up and through the roof, despite their fraudulent statements that they made. Crime in this country is through the roof.
Empirically wrong.
Form of crime. It's called migrant crime, and it's happening at levels that nobody thought possible.
President Trump, as you know, the FBI says overall violent crime is actually coming down in this country. But Vice
Excuse me,
President
the
Harris,
FBI
Crime is
they were
down.
defrauding statements. They didn't include the worst cities. They didn't include the cities with.
That's
the worst
right.
crime.
Tell 'em.
It was a-
This is actually a real criticism.
like their number of 818,000 jobs
Facts.
they said they created turned out to be a.
That's also true. Also fraud.
Well, I think
Damn.
so.
Look at them.
Coming from someone who has been prosecuted for
Drink time.
national security
Here we go.
crimes, election interference, has been found liable for sexual assault, and his next big
Oh, she's trying to rattle
is in November at his own criminal sentencing. And let's be clear where each person stands on the issue of what is important about respect for the rule of law and respect for law enforcement. The former vice president called for defunding federal law enforcement, 45,000 agents, get this, on the day after he was arraigned on 34 felony counts. So let's talk about what is important in this race. It is important that we move forward, that we turn the page on this same old tired rhetoric and address the needs of the American people, address what we need to do about the housing shortage, which I have a plan for, address what we must do to support our small businesses, address bringing down the price of groceries. But frankly, the American people are exhausted with this same old tired playbook.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
Excuse me. Every one of those cases was started by them against their political opponent. And I'm winning most of them, and I will win the rest on appeal. And you saw that with the decision that came down from the Supreme Court. I'm winning most of them. But
Didn't they
those
just
are
delay
cases,
sentencing?
it's called weaponization. Never happened in this country.
Lost
they
one.
weaponized the Justice Department. Every one of those cases was involved with the DOJ, from Atlanta and Fani Willis to the Attorney General of New York and the
Can't even remember all the people who were prosecuting him.
and then they say, oh, he's a criminal. They're the ones that made them go after me. By the way, Joe Biden was found essentially
Citation
guilty
needed.
on the documents case. And what happened in my documents case? They said, oh, that's the toughest of them all. A complete
That's true.
victory. 2 months ago, it was thrown out. It's
Yeah, because of
weaponization, and they
Trump
used it,
dick
and it's
suck
never happened in
fucking-
this country.
Sorry.
They used it to try and win an election.
Oh, that's why?
Fake cases.
President Trump
Wasn't an illegally appointed prosecutor?
on this notion of weaponization of the Justice Department.
Well, let's talk about extreme and understand the context in which this election in 2024 is taking place. The United States Supreme Court recently ruled that the former president would essentially be immune from any misconduct if he were to enter the White House again. Understand, this is someone who has openly said he would terminate, I'm quoting, terminate the
Destiny's
Constitution of the
booming right
United
now with
States,
this reference,
that he
by
would
the way.
weaponize the Department of Justice
Booming.
against his political enemies. Someone who has openly expressed disdain for members of our military. Understand what it would mean if Donald Trump were back in the White House with no guardrails, because certainly we know now the court won't stop him. We know J.D. Vance is not going to stop him. It's up to the American people.
Vice
To
President
stop
Harris,
him.
thank you. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president.
Oh, he's trying.
One that
He's
weaponized,
trying.
not me. She weaponized.
What happened to
I
Mike Penn?
probably took a bullet to the head because of the things that they say about me. They talk about democracy.
Yes!
I'm a threat to democracy. They're the threat to democracy with a
President
fake Russia investigation
We do have a lot to
that
get-
went nowhere.
We have a lot to get to. Lindsay?
Vice President Harris, in your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You want
No, he just accused her of being responsible for his assassination attempt.
Don't.
I want everyone to
Indirectly.
Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
So my values have not changed, and I'm going to discuss every one of the, at least every point that you've made. But in particular, let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I have not banned fracking as Vice President of the United States. And in fact, I was the tie-breaking vote on the Inflation Reduction Act, which opened new leases for fracking. My position is that we have got to invest in diverse
Fact check
sources
true.
of energy so we reduce our reliance on foreign oil. We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history because of an approach that recognizes that we cannot over-rely on foreign oil. As it relates to my values,
Drill, baby, drill.
a middle-class kid raised by a hardworking mother who worked and saved and was able to buy her first home when I was a teenager. The values I bring to the importance of home ownership.
It humanizes him. It's nice. I like it.
$400 million on a silver platter and then filed bankruptcy 6 times is a value that I bring to my work to say we are going to work with the private sector and home builders to increase 3 million homes, increase by 3 million homes by the end of my first term. My work that is related to having a friend when I was in high school who was sexually assaulted by her stepfather. And my focus then on protecting women and children from violent crime is based on a value that is deeply grounded in the importance of standing up for those who are most vulnerable. My work that is about protecting Social Security and Medicare is based on long-standing work that I have done, protecting seniors from scams. My values have not changed. And what is important is that there is a president who actually brings values and a perspective that is about lifting people up and not beating people down and name calling. The true measure of the leader is the leader who actually understands the strength is not in beating people down, it's in lifting people up. I intend to be that president.
President Trump, your
Well, first of all, I wasn't given $400 million. I wish I was. My father was
Shut up, bitch. I'm talking.
in Queens and a great father, and I learned a lot from him. But I was given a fraction of that, a tiny fraction, and I built it into many, many billions of dollars, many, many billions. And when people see it, they are even surprised. So we don't have to talk about that. Fracking, she's been against it for 12 years. Defund the police, she's been against that forever. She gave all that stuff up very wrongly, very horribly, and everybody's laughing at it, okay? They're all laughing at it. She gave up at least 12 and probably 14 or 15 different policies. Like, she was big on defund the police. In Minnesota, she went out, wait a minute, I'm talking now. You know.
Oh, shit.
Is that
I'm speaking. He did the I'm speaking thing. Okay.
She went out in Minnesota and wanted to let criminals that killed people, that burned down Minneapolis, she went out and raised money to get them out of jail. She did things that nobody would ever think of. Now she wants to do transgender operations on illegal aliens that are in prison. This is a radical liberal that would do this. She wants to confiscate your guns, and she will never allow fracking in Pennsylvania. If she won the election, fracking in Pennsylvania will end on day one. Just to finish one thing, so important in my opinion. So I got the oil business going like nobody has ever done before. When they took over, they got rid of it, started getting rid of it, and the prices were going up the roof. They immediately let these guys go to where they were. I would have been 5 times, 4 times, 5 times higher because you're talking about 3.5 years ago. They got it up.
What was the question again?
Was because they had no choice because the prices of energy were,
Whether they'd been fracking.
quadrupling. And
It was asking Harris about issue or flip flop.
let's go back to Trump. But if she won the election, the day after that election,
Asked him a
they'll go
question.
back
He
to
just
destroying our.
They asked him if he wanted to respond to any of her claims about it.
Dead. We'll go back to windmills and to solar.
She did, but that was basically
desert to get some energy.
To be fair, her response to the flip flopping was, well, like, look at my upbringing. So.
Yeah, it wasn't much.
Oh, yo, thank you for the $100, Audacity. I'll read it in a second.
These are not good things for the environment. She understands.
Thank you.
Lindsay, thank you. We have
We need a break so we can talk about this.
I want to talk about the peaceful transfer of power, which, of course, we all know is a cornerstone of our democracy and the role of a
Killed him with that transgender line.
moment of crisis.
Aliens.
That was so fucking
January
stupid,
6th,
dude.
you told your supporters to march.
It's pretty
Oh,
funny.
truth.
You would be right there.
It's not even funny.
And they're gonna take your guns.
What played out at the Capitol that day, the officers coming under attack. Aides in the West Wing say you watched it unfold on television off the Oval Office. You did send out tweets, but it was more than 2 hours before you sent out that video message telling your supporters to go home. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day?
You just said a thing that isn't covered. peacefully and patriotically. I said during my speech, not later on. Peacefully and patriotically. And nobody on the other side was killed. Ashley Babbitt was shot by an out-of-control police officer that should have never, ever shot her. It's a disgrace. But we didn't do this group of people that have been treated so badly. I ask, what about all the people that are pouring into our country and killing people?
Oh,
she allowed
man,
to pour
this
in.
is
She was
bad.
the border czar. Remember that. She was the border czar. She doesn't want to be called the border czar because she's embarrassed by the border. In fact, she said at the beginning, "Oh, I'm surprised you're not talking about the border yet." That's because she knows what a bad job they've done. What about those people? When are they going to be prosecuted? When are these people from countries all over the world, not just South America? They're coming in from all over the world, David, all over the world. And crime rates are down all over the world because of it.
But let me just
when
ask
are those, David, when are those people going to be prosecuted? When are the people that burned down Minneapolis going to be prosecuted? Or in
I just wanted to ask, did you have any
wanted to see
regrets?
Seattle. They took over a big percentage of the city of Seattle. When are those people going to be prosecuted?
But let me just ask
You might ask her that question.
You were the president. You were watching it unfold on television. It's a very simple question as we move forward toward another election. Is there anything you regret about what you did on that day? Yes or no?
I had nothing to do with that other than they asked me to make a speech. I showed up.
Just answer the question.
It's going to be big.
He
I went to
can't.
Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington, D.C., and the mayor
Just answered it.
in writing, as you know. I said, this is going to be a very big
But watch, so I'm going to ask her about the other thing.
And again, it wasn't done by me. It was done by others. I said, I'd like to give you 10,000 National Guard or soldiers. They rejected me. Nancy Pelosi rejected me. It was just 2 weeks ago. Her daughter has a tape of her saying she is fully responsible for what happened. They want to get rid of that tape. It would have never happened if Nancy Pelosi and the mayor of Washington did their jobs. I wasn't responsible for security. Nancy Pelosi was responsible. She didn't do her job.
The question was about you as president, not about former Speaker Pelosi. But I do want Vice President Harris to respond here.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died. And understand, the former president has been indicted and impeached for exactly that reason. But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say?
Here comes another line.
I bet you he fact checks this one.
That when it came to...
You think he's going to fact check? Yeah.
He's going to fact check this one.
Surely. Hold on. I'm going to take a hit if they don't.
He's right.
Stand by.
Wait, where's the fact check?
So for
Hold on, we gotta wait till she's done. There.
Yeah.
what January 6th was, I say we don't have to go back. Let's not go back. We're not going back. It's time to
I
turn.
got the hit ready for the fact check.
And if that was a bridge too far for you, well, there is a place in
Fact check.
campaign for you to stand for country, to stand for our democracy, to stand for rule of law, and to end the chaos,
The mods are so bad
to
here.
end the approach that is about attacking the foundations of our democracy because you don't like the outcome. And be clear on that point. Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking. Let's turn the page on this. Let's not go back. Let's chart a course for the future and not go backwards to the past.
Let me just follow up here.
It was a different term, and it was a term that related to energy because they have destroyed our energy business. That was where
No fact check, like I thought.
Well, he's interrupted the possible fact
You
check.
would say debunked. Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity, Jesse, all of these people, they covered it. If they go an extra sentence, they will see it was perfect. It was debunked in almost every newspaper, but they still bring it up, just like they bring 2025 up. They bring all of this stuff up. I ask you this. You talk about the...
I didn't fact check Project 2025 either.
We allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border. How come she's not doing
God.
He really cares about the border, dude.
Very proud to do it. I would say
It's his only.
He honestly needs to keep hammering the border. That's what he needs to keep doing.
go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C.
He's losing
Sign up,
his mind.
close up the border because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The president of the United States, you'll get him out of bed. You'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You'll say, come on down to the office. Let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Mr.
Those
President,
people are killing many people, unlike J6.
We talked immigration here tonight. I do want to focus on this next issue to both of you because it really
No fact check.
this into focus. Truth in these times that we're living in. Mr. President, for 3.5 years after you lost the 2020 election, you repeatedly falsely claimed that you won, many times saying you won in a landslide. In the past couple of weeks leading up to this debate, you have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that
Lex
you, quote,
Friedman.
didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say that.
sarcastically. You
But
know
those-
that.
Oh,
We said,
my
we
No, he did not.
sarcastically. Look,
Did you watch the Lex Friedman debate? That was not sarcastic.
let's look at it. And they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval. I got almost
shouldn't be
75
digging
million
into
votes, the
this.
most votes any sitting president has ever gotten. I was told if I got 63, which was what I got in 2016, you can't be beaten. The election, people should never be thinking about an election as fraudulent. We need two things. We need walls. And we have to have it. We have to have borders, and we have to have good elections. Our elections are bad. And a lot of these illegal immigrants coming in, they're trying to get them to vote. They can't even speak English. They don't even know what country they're in practically. And these people are trying to get them to vote. And that's why they're allowing them to come.
Hold on, Lex Friedman, if you're in chat, which you sometimes are, was he being sarcastic when he said that?
Lost by a whisker, we didn't quite
No,
make it.
he wasn't.
And we-
No, I'm asking Lex Friedman because
clarification,
sometimes
you know
he's
this,
in my
you
chat.
and your allies, 60 cases in front of
Lex,
many
if
judges.
you're listening,
No
I'm
judge looked at
calling you out.
So
I
they
want an
said
We
answer.
didn't have
Widespread fraud.
standing. That's the other thing. They said we didn't have standing, a technicality. Can you imagine a system
Not a
where
technicality,
a
it's-
person in an election doesn't have standing? The president of the United States doesn't have standing. That's how we lost. If you look at the facts, and I'd love to have you'll do a special on it. I'll show you Georgia, and I'll show you Wisconsin, and I'll show you Pennsylvania, and I'll show you. We have so many facts and statistics, but you know what? That doesn't matter because we have to solve the problem that we have right now. That's old news. And the problem that we have right now is we have a nation in decline, and they have put it into decline. We have a nation that is dying, David.
Mr. President, thank you. Vice President Harris, you heard the president there tonight. He said he didn't say that he lost by a whisker. So he still believes he did not lose the election that was won by President Biden and yourself. But I do want to ask you about something that's come up in the last couple of days. This was a post from President.
You think she's going to get fact checked a single time?
Coming election,
Entire debate?
weeks away. He said, "When I win,
No fact check. Super biased.
donors."
It's like a single time. You guys think so?
He says will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences.
You know,
One of your campaign's top lawyers responded
Interrupting
saying,
the
we won't let Donald
moderators.
Trump intimidate us. We won't let him suppress the vote. Is that what you believe he's trying to do here?
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly, he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And I'm going to tell you that I have traveled the world as Vice President of the United States. And world leaders are laughing at Donald Trump.
Wes basically has
I
something to
have
do with the
talked
stand
with
by and stand
military
down.
leaders, some of whom worked with you, and they say you're a disgrace. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did, in fact, lose that election. It leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused.
What a fumble.
About fact. That's deeply troubling, and the American people deserve better.
I'll give you 1 minute to respond, Mr. President.
Let me just say about world leaders. Viktor Orban, one of the most respected men, they call him a strong man.
Viktor Orban, is that the guy you're going to go with?
Smart. Prime Minister of Hungary. They said, why is the
He's
whole
a
world
Putin puppet.
blowing up? 3 years ago, it wasn't. Why is it blowing up? He said, because you need Trump back as president.
Dude, that's not a good endorsement.
Afraid, and I don't like to use the word afraid, but I'm just quoting him. China was afraid of him.
Hitler thought I was a strong president, right?
Look at what's going on
Here.
in Korea.
Orban's like a horrible fucking person. He's a dictator.
I ended the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, and Biden put it back on day one, but he ended the XL pipeline. The XL pipeline in our country, he ended that, but he let the Russians build a pipeline going all over Europe and heading into Germany, the biggest pipeline.
You
look, Viktor Orban said it. He said the most respected, most feared person is Donald Trump. We had no problems when Trump was president, but when this weak, pathetic man that you saw at a debate just a few months ago, that if he weren't in that debate,
damn, telling him.
Instead of her, she got no votes. He got 14 million votes. What
He
you
wants
did,
Biden on
you
that
talk
stage.
about-
Oh, he's telling him.
He got 14 million.
It's a front to democracy.
And you know,
threw him out.
A little secret. He hates her. He can't stand her. He got 14 million votes. They threw him out. She got 0 votes.
He's told facts.
She was the first one to leave because she failed, and now she's running. I don't understand it, but I'm okay with it because
your time is
I think
up.
we're going to do very well.
We've got a lot
No,
more
you're
to
not.
get
You're not.
Turning
okay
now
with it.
to the Israel-Hamas war, and hostages are still being held, Americans among them. Vice President Harris, in December, you said, quote, Israel has a right to defend itself, but you added, quote, it matters how, saying international humanitarian law must be respected. Israel must do more to protect innocent civilians. You said that 9 months ago. Now an estimated 40,000 Palestinians are dead. Nearly 100 hostages remain. Just last week, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there's not a deal in the making. President Biden has not been able to break through the stalemate. How would you do it?
Well, let's understand how we got here. On October
Tricky
7th,
question.
Hamas, a terrorist organization,
Condemned.
slaughtered 1,200 Israelis. Many of them young people who were simply attending a concert.
Hassan's mauling right
Women
now.
were
Hassan's going
horribly
crazy.
raped. And so, absolutely, I said then, I say now, Israel has a right to defend itself. We would. And how it does so matters. Because it is also true, far too many innocent Palestinians have been killed. Children, mothers. What we know is that this war must end. It must end immediately, and the way it
Not
will
answering
end
how.
is we need a ceasefire deal, and we need the hostages out. And so we will continue to work around the clock on that. Work around the clock, also understanding that we must chart a course for a two-state solution. And in that solution, there must be security for the Israeli people and Israel, and in equal measure for the Palestinians. But the one thing I will assure you always, I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel. But we must have a two-state solution where we can rebuild Gaza, where the Palestinians have security, self-determination, and the dignity they so rightly deserve.
What about Hamas?
Trump, how would you negotiate with Netanyahu?
It was.
So Hamas, in order to get the
Oh, wow. They're actually going to ask both candidates the same question? Holy shit.
civilians in Gaza.
If I were president, it would have never started. If I were president, Russia would have never, ever, I know Putin very well, he would have never, and there was no threat of it either, by the way, for 4 years, have gone into Ukraine and killed millions of people when you add it up, far worse than people understand what's going on over there. But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel. At the same time, in her own way, she hates the Arab population because the whole place is going to get blown up. Arabs, Jewish people, Israel will be gone. It would have never happened. Iran was broke under Donald Trump. Now Iran has $300 billion because they took off all the sanctions that I had. Iran had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah or any of the 28 different spheres of terror. And they are spheres of terror, horrible terror. They had no money. It was a big story, and you know it. You covered it very well, actually. They had no money for terror. They were broke. Now they're a rich nation, and now what they're doing is they're spreading that money around.
From New York?
Happening with the Houthis and Yemen. Look at what's going on in the Middle East. This would have never happened. I will get that settled and fast, and I'll get the war with Ukraine and Russia ended. If I'm president-elect, I'll get it done before even becoming president.
Vice President Harris, he says you hate Israel.
That's absolutely not true. I have my entire career and life supported Israel and the Israeli people. He knows that.
She just lost the
He's
son.
trying to, again, divide and distract from the reality, which is it is very well known that Donald Trump is weak and wrong on national security and foreign policy. It is well known that he admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself. It is well known that he said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine. It is well known that he said when Russia went into Ukraine, it was brilliant. It is well known he exchanged love letters with Kim Jong-un. And it is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you with flattery and favors. And that is why so many military leaders who you have worked with have told me you are a disgrace. That is why we understand that we have to have a president who is not consistently weak and wrong on national security, including the importance of upholding and respecting in highest regard our military.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
They're the ones, and she's the one that caused it, that's weak on national security by allowing every nation last month for the year, 168 different countries sending people into our country. Their crime rates are way down. Putin endorsed her last week.
He's
Said, I
really
hope she
big on
wins,
the
and I think he meant it. Because what he's gotten away with is absolutely incredible. It wouldn't have happened with me. The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent. And I just ask one question. Why does Biden go in and kill the Keystone Pipeline and approve the single biggest deal that Russia's ever made, Nord Stream 2, the biggest pipeline anywhere in the world going to Germany and all over Europe? Because they're weak and they're ineffective. And Biden, by the way, gets paid a lot of money.
Thank you. We have a lot of issues to get to.
We'll be right back with much more of this historic NBC News presidential debate from the National Constitution Center.
I don't give a shit. Wow. Okay, I'm going to use my privilege as the host of tonight to say this is amazing content. First of all, I think that Trump is really pushing the border narrative. He is very much doubling down border, 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 right? I think that's his motto here. I think every question he tries to tie to the border. However, I think, and my Republican colleagues, my conservative colleagues might disagree with me, but I think he's doing in such an unhinged way that they're coming to eat our dogs, right? Is not going to land with voters. It's not going to land with the audience. I think it's a loser rhetorically, but we'll have to see. I think it'll play to the crazies. And I boosted this and I asked my dear viewers, I put a tweet out asking Lex Friedman, who sometimes watches my show, if he thinks when Trump mentioned on his podcast that he lost, and Trump mentioned he lost by a whisker. That's his words. In his debate tonight, he has said that was sarcastic. I'm very curious if Lex Friedman agrees with that assessment or if he took him at his word at face value. So boost that if you can on Twitter. I don't usually ask for Twitter boosts, but I'm asking now. If you're watching this, if you are subscribed to my Twitter, do it. But quickly, concisely, let's go to Lactoid first, and then we'll go around.
Skip me.
Skip you. Okay.
Somebody else first.
Doghouse, go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I think one thing that I've noticed being mentioned time and time again, I think this was done on purpose by the Kamala Harris campaign, is they are mentioning the American people, American people, American people, American people. And I think it's intentional. I think that she is stuck very precisely to the policies that will affect the American people. She has been very coherent, very straightforward. Donald Trump has been all over the place. He's not been very coordinated. However, depending on how you're reading that, you could say that he's being authentic, whereas Kamala Harris is being rehearsed. So,
okay. Next, Sonsol, quick.
I think that Trump was really floundering at the very beginning of the debate. He picked it up a little bit in the middle of where we're at right now, and at the end, he started going off about eating dogs and shit. And I think that something's getting to him because he's starting to interrupt a lot more. So we'll have to see if he calms down after this. I think that there's a couple of questions that neither of them would answer. That is kind of disappointing, but yeah.
Gibbs, please.
Yeah, I heard some people talking about how tired Trump might look compared to Kamala. He's definitely not getting the Biden treatment. He's coming out there, he's attacking, he's swinging for the fences, whether you think they're landing or not. Yeah, I mean, he's doing what I hoped. He needs to keep hammering the border and hammering how bad she is on foreign policy. I don't know. I don't really feel like her attacks are landing as much, and Trump's doing what I hoped.
Hey, Tyler, please.
Man, I think that based on the two criteria that I gave, I don't think Trump's blowing it. A couple of his comments were a little out there. The dogs one's probably going to be clipped and passed around to show a little bit how crazy he is.
Yes.
He did trail off a little bit unhinged once or twice. Otherwise, he's pretty disciplined. He's 80-90% on message, and he's really sticking it hard to the border because this is the most the border has ever been an issue outside of Republican politics. So, of course, he's going to. This is his signature policy. Harris is doing a decent job defining herself. She hasn't given me much more detail than what she's already been giving for the last few weeks, though. So it leaves a lot open for Trump to keep trying to define her, and you see him taking the chances to with her old policies. Let's see if it works. We'll see the after polling.
Lactoid, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think the moderators here are
super biased.
I think they're biased, and I think that that's going to become the new angle of attack here. There's not really, the dog soundbite is bad. I think that there's going to be plenty of soundbites that the Trump campaign is going to be able to use. I think that overall she is probably doing slightly better, even though I don't think it's a complete disaster. And just to back up my belief, Polymarket now has them both tied. Trump's dropped 3% roughly since the debate started, and then she's gained 3%. So they're tied now.
He's only been fact checked like 1 or 2 times, right?
No, dude. He's been fact checked 4 times. She hasn't been fact checked once, despite blatantly lying like twice at least.
To be fair to the moderators, Trump keeps interrupting the moderators when they.
Even when it hasn't been that, it's not even just the not fact checking her. It's also like he'll be like, "Why don't you ask her this?" And okay, well, that's a good question. Why don't you ask? And then they won't ask. That's happened at least twice on several times. He's like, "Well, okay, you asked me this."
Yeah. What frustrated me about Kamala, if I may, real quick, right? Kamala refused to answer a question that was about abortion, right? There was an abortion question which she was asked, "Hey, will you?" I forget the exact question. I wish I'd wrote it down.
Support it up to
Trump had to ask that. They didn't even ask that. Trump had to ask that, and they refused to hold their feet to the fire on it.
Yeah, that's. Well, and then it was also they didn't ask about
answered the question. But I'm unmuted.
We're coming back in. We're coming back in.
The national abortion ban. He needed to.
He also dodged that. Yeah.
Mr. President, it has been the position of the Biden administration that we must defend Ukraine from Russia, from Vladimir Putin, to defend their sovereignty, their democracy, that it's in America's best interest to do so, arguing that if Putin wins, he may be emboldened to move even further into other countries. You have said you would solve this war in 24 hours. You said so just before the break tonight. How exactly would you do that? And I want to ask you a very simple question tonight. Do you want Ukraine to win this war?
I want the war to stop. I want to save lives that are being people being killed by the millions. It's the millions. It's so much worse than the numbers that you're getting, which are fake numbers. Look, we're in for 250 billion or more because they don't ask Europe, which is a much bigger beneficiary to getting this thing done than we are. they're in for $150 billion less because Biden and you don't have the courage to ask Europe like I did with NATO. They paid billions and billions, hundreds of billions of dollars when I said, either you pay up or we're not going to protect you anymore. So that's maybe one of the reasons they don't like me as much as they like weak people. But you take a look at what's happening.
I think
we're
most
in
nations
for
still haven't hit
250
2%.
to 275 billion. They're into 100 to 150. They should be forced
Poland's at
to
like 4.5.
equalize. With that being said, I want to get the war settled. I know Zelensky very well, and I know Putin very well. I have a good relationship, and they respect your president, okay? They respect me. They don't respect Biden. How would you respect him? Why? For what reason? He hasn't even made a phone call in 2 years to Putin, hasn't spoken to anybody. They don't even try and get it. That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together. That war would have never happened. And in fact, when I saw Putin after I left, unfortunately left because our country has gone to hell. But after I left, when I saw him building up soldiers, he did it after I left. I said, oh, he must be negotiating. It must be a good, strong point of negotiation. Well, it wasn't, because Biden had no idea how to talk to him. He had no idea how to stop it. And now you have millions of people dead, and it's only getting worse, and it could lead to World War III. Don't kid yourself, David. We're playing with World War III, and we have a president that we don't even know if he's. Where is our president? We don't even know if he's a president.
And just to clarify
they
here,
threw him out of a campaign like a dog. We don't even know. Is he our president? But we have a president,
Mr. President,
that doesn't know he's alive.
your time is up.
told you guys,
Just to
the
clarify
Republicans
the
would be seal
question,
clapping along
do
with
you
the most
believe it's in the
retarded shit
U.S.
that he
best
says.
He's cooking 'em.
interest for Ukraine to win this war?
It's
Yes or
I
no?
think it's
It's
the
a fair
US
point.
best
Where the fuck
interest
is
to
he?
get this war finished and just
On
get it
vacation for
done.
3 weeks.
He's on the
Negotiate a deal,
beach.
because we have to stop all of these human lives from being destroyed.
I want to take this to Vice President Harris. I want to get your thoughts on support for Ukraine
didn't
in
say
this
how to
moment,
do it.
but also as Commander-in-Chief, if elected, how would you deal with Vladimir Putin, and would it be
For
any
sure, you're
different from
right.
what we're seeing from President Biden?
Well, first of all, it's important to remind the former president you're not running against Joe Biden, you're running against me. I believe the reason that Donald Trump says that this war would be over within 24 hours is because he would just give it up. And that's not who we are as Americans. Let's understand what happened here. I actually met with Zelensky a few days before Russia invaded, tried through force to change territorial boundaries, to defy one of the most important international rules and norms, which is the importance of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And I met with President Zelensky. I shared with him American intelligence about how he could defend himself. Days later, I went to NATO's eastern flank, to Poland and Romania. And through the work that I and others did, we brought 50 countries together to support Ukraine in its righteous defense. And because of our
Hell yeah.
support, because of the air defense, the ammunition, the artillery, the javelins, the Abrams tanks that we have provided, Ukraine stands
love the
as an
detail.
independent and free country. If Donald Trump were president, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv right now. And understand what that would mean, because Putin's agenda is not just about Ukraine. Understand why the European allies and our NATO allies are so thankful that you are no longer president, and that we understand the importance of the greatest military alliance the world has ever known, which is NATO, and what we have done to preserve the ability of Zelensky and the Ukrainians to fight for their independence. Otherwise, Putin would be sitting in Kyiv with his eyes on the rest of Europe, starting with Poland. And why don't you tell the 800,000 Polish Americans right here in Pennsylvania how quickly you would give up for the sake
debate
of
prep right there.
favor and what you think is a friendship
is. Great
with
line.
what is known to be a dictator who would eat you for lunch.
Vice President Harris, thank you. We've heard from both of you on Ukraine tonight.
Woo, he was
Afghanistan
silent.
came
I want
up
him
in the
to
last hour.
respond.
I wanted her to respond to something you said earlier, and please, I'll give you a minute here.
Putin would be sitting in Moscow, and he wouldn't have lost 300,000 men and women, but he would have been sitting in Moscow. Quiet, please. He would have been sitting in Moscow, much happier than he is right now.
Got a little
But
snappier the second
eventually,
time.
you know, he's got a thing that other people don't have. He's got nuclear weapons. They don't ever talk about that. He's got nuclear weapons.
He's not
Nobody
gonna
ever
use
thinks
them,
about
it's
that.
not-
And eventually, maybe he'll use them, and maybe he hasn't been that threatening. But he does have that, something we don't even like to talk about. Nobody likes to talk about it. But just so you understand, they sent her to negotiate peace before this war started. 3 days later, he went in and he started the war because everything they said was weak and stupid. They said the wrong things. That war should have never started. She was the emissary. They sent her in to negotiate with Zelensky and Putin, and she did. And the war started 3 days later. And that's the kind of talent we have with her. She's worse than Biden. In my opinion, I think he's the worst president in the history of our country.
They muted
She
her
goes
mic more
down
than they
as the
muted his
worst
mic.
vice president in the history of our country. But let me tell you something. She is a horrible negotiator. They sent her in to negotiate. As soon as they left, Putin did the invasion.
President Trump, thank you. You did bring up something. You said she went to negotiate with Vladimir Putin. Vice President Harris, have you ever met Vladimir Putin? Can you clarify tonight?
Yet again, I said it at the beginning of this debate, you're going to hear a bunch of lies coming from this fella. And that is another one. When I went to meet with President Zelensky, I've now met with him over 5 times. The reality is it has been about standing as America always should, as a leader upholding international rules and norms, as a leader who shows strength, understanding that the alliances we have around the world are dependent on our ability to look out for our friends and not favor our enemies because you adore strongmen instead of caring about democracy. And that is very much what is at stake here. The President of the United States is commander-in-chief. And the American people have a right to rely on a president who understands the significance of America's role and responsibility in terms of ensuring that there is stability and ensuring we stand up for our principles and not sell them for the benefit of personal flattery.
We've talked about Ukraine and Vladimir Putin. I do want to talk about Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of this debate.
Here we go, baby.
I want to move on to Afghanistan.
Said Trump did the most amazing thing I've ever seen. He got these
Mute
countries,
his mic.
the 28 countries
What's the
at
point
the
of this?
time, to pay up. He said, I've never seen, he's the head of NATO. He said, I've never seen. For years, we were
They
paying
have given
almost
Trump
all
way
of
more
NATO.
grace.
We were being ripped
the
off
mic
by
in.
European
That's fair,
nations,
they
both
have.
on trade and on NATO. I got them to pay up by saying one of the statements you made before, if you don't pay, we're not going to protect you.
President
Otherwise,
Trump.
we would have never gotten it. He said it was one of the most
Mute the mic.
incredible jobs that he's
Yeah,
ever
I
seen
agree.
done.
They should
Thank
definitely
you.
do it
I
now.
want to turn to Afghanistan. It came up in the first hour of the debate, and we witnessed a poignant moment today on Capitol Hill, honoring the soldiers who died in the chaotic withdrawal from Afghanistan. I do
Political
want to ask
photo
the
op
Vice
bingo coming in.
President, do you believe you bear any responsibility in the way that withdrawal played out?
Well, I will tell you, I agreed with President Biden's decision to pull out of Afghanistan. 4 presidents said they would, and Joe Biden did. And as a result, America's taxpayers are not paying the $300 million a day we were paying for that endless war. And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. But let's understand how we got to where we are. Donald Trump, when he was president, negotiated one of the weakest deals you can imagine. He calls himself a deal maker. Even his national security advisor said it was a weak, terrible deal. And here's how it went down. He bypassed the Afghan government. He negotiated directly with a terrorist organization called the Taliban. The negotiation involved the Taliban getting 5,000 Taliban terrorists released. And get this, and the president at the time invited the Taliban to Camp David, a place of storied significance for us as Americans, a place where we honor the importance of American diplomacy, where we invite and receive respected world leaders. And this former president, as president, invited them
I heard him.
to Camp
Call him the
David
N-word.
because he does not again appreciate
That'd
the
have been great.
role
She
and
couldn't seal it.
responsibility of the President of the United States to be commander-in-chief with a level of respect. And this gets back to the point of how he has
2 minutes,
consistently
Tyler.
disparaged
All right,
and
2
demeaned
minutes.
members of our military, fallen soldiers, and the work that we must do to uphold the strength and the respect of the United States of America around the world.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump, your response to her saying that you began the negotiations
Yeah, thank
with
you.
the
Bless our
Taliban.
families.
So, if you take a look at that period of time, the Taliban was killing our soldiers, a lot of them, with snipers. And I got involved with the Taliban because the Taliban was doing the
With
killing. That's the
snipers.
fighting force
Got
within
involved with the
Afghanistan. They
Taliban
don't
because
bother
the
doing
Taliban
that
was
because
killing
they
American
deal with the
soldiers.
wrong people.
That's
all
what he
the
just
time.
said.
But
With
I got
snipers.
involved.
Biden's doing 9/11.
And
Trump's getting involved with the
Abdul
Taliban.
is the
Wow,
head
what's
of
happening?
the Taliban. He is still the head of the Taliban. And I told Abdul, don't do it anymore. You do it anymore, you're going to have problems. And he said, why do you send me a picture of my house? I said, you're going to have to figure that out, Abdul. And for 18 months, we had nobody killed. We did have an agreement negotiated by Mike Pompeo. It was a very
like
good
that
agreement.
negotiating
The
tactic. It's a
reason
good one.
it was good, it was we were getting out. We would have been out faster than them, but we wouldn't have lost the soldiers. We wouldn't have left many Americans behind, and we wouldn't have left $85 billion worth of brand new, beautiful military equipment
totally had to
behind.
make that up
And
out
just
of
to
his
finish,
head. I don't
they blew it. The agreement said you have to do this, and they didn't do it. They didn't do it. The agreement was terminated by us because they didn't do what they were supposed to do.
I want to move
And
on.
these people did the worst withdrawal, and in my opinion, the most embarrassing moment in
Was
the
it
history of our
terminated
country.
at any
And by the
point?
way, that's why
Now
Russia
let's move on.
attacked Ukraine, because they saw how incompetent she and her boss are.
President Trump, thank you. I want to move on now to race and politics in this country. Mr. President, you recently said of Vice President Harris, quote, I didn't know she was black until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now
No
she wants to
way.
be known as black.
Why
I
is
ask a
this
bigger
debate
picture question
topic?
here tonight.
Honestly, the
Why
question.
do you
I love
believe
it.
it's
I
appropriate
love
to
it.
weigh
I
in
love
on the racial identity of your opponent?
I don't, and I don't care. I don't care what she is. I don't care. You make a big deal out of something. I couldn't care less. Whatever she wants to be is okay with me.
But those were your words, so I'm
I don't
asking.
know. I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black that she put out.
Oh no, she's doing it again. Fuck.
I'll say
She's
that.
doing it again.
And then I read that she was black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
Vice President Harris, your thoughts on this?
I think it's,
a dumb
I mean,
question.
honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who
This
wants
is
to be
hers to win.
president who has
definitely
consistently,
hers to
over
win.
the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people. You know, I do believe that the vast majority of us know that we have so much more in common than what separates us, and we don't want this kind of approach that is just constantly trying to divide us, and especially by race. And let's remember how Donald Trump started. He was land, he owned buildings, and he was investigated
That was a flaw.
because he refused to rent property to black families.
She
Let's
forgot the
remember, this
name.
is the same individual who took out
Real
a
estate
full-page
mogul.
ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5.
Not true.
She was trying to come up with
Took
that
out
name.
a
She couldn't
full-page
remember.
ad calling for their execution. This is the same individual who spread birther lies about the first black president of the United States. And I think the American people want better than that, want better than this, want someone who understands, as I do, I travel our country. We see in each other a friend. We see in each other a neighbor. We don't want a leader who is constantly trying to have Americans point their fingers at each other. I meet with people all the time who tell me, can we please just have discourse about how we're going to invest in the aspirations and the ambitions and the dreams of the American people? Knowing that regardless of people's color or the language their grandmother speaks, we all have the same dreams and aspirations and want a president who invests in those, not in hate and division.
Vice President Harris, thank you. Lindsay?
President Trump, this is now your third time.
This is the most divisive
They are giving him
presidency
so much grace.
in the history of our country. There's never
They just
been
let him
anything
run
like
rock
it.
dry.
He's not
They're
interrupting her
destroying our
though,
country.
like at all.
And they come up with things like what she just said. Going back many, many years, when a lot of people, including Mayor Bloomberg, agreed with me on the Central Park Five, they admitted, they said, they pled guilty. And I said, well, if they pled guilty, they badly hurt a person, killed a person
no.
ultimately. And if they pled guilty, then they pled, we're not guilty. But this is a person that has to stretch back years,
They were never
40, 50
acquitted of
years
that,
ago.
by the way. It was dropped.
Because there's nothing now. I built one of the greatest economies in the history of the world, and I'm going to build it again. It's going to be bigger, better, and stronger. But they're destroying our economy. They have no idea what a good economy is. Their oil policies, every single policy. And remember
Cut
this.
his mic.
Immigration.
She is Biden. You know, she's trying to get away from Biden. I don't know the gentleman, she says. She is Biden. The worst inflation we've ever had, a horrible economy because inflation has made it so bad that you can't get away with that.
Briefly.
See, they got her mic. There we go.
Clearly, I am not Joe Biden, and I am certainly not Donald Trump. And what I do offer is a new generation of leadership for our country. One who believes in what is possible, one who brings a sense of optimism about what we can do instead of always disparaging the American people. I believe in what we can do to strengthen our small businesses, which is why I have a plan. Let's talk about our plans and let's compare the plans. I have a plan to give startup businesses $50,000 tax deduction.
He's asked why they're not doing it now.
Pursue their ambitions, their innovation, their ideas, their hard work. I have a plan, $6,000 for young families for the first year of your child's life to help you in that most critical stage of your child's development. I have a plan that is about allowing people to be able to
Is this the end of the
pursue
debate?
what has been fleeting in terms of the American dream.
she's
by
just
Trump needs to say,
offering
not talking about
help with
policy at all.
down payment of
I feel like
$25,000
you should
down
say,
payment
"You have
assistance
a plan,
for
I have
first-time home
results."
buyers. That's the kind of conversation I believe, David, that people really want tonight,
Mod, step in.
as opposed to a conversation that is constantly about belittling and name-calling. Let's turn the page
Vice
and
President
move
Harris,
forward.
thank you. Let's turn to policy.
President
Let's turn
Trump,
back
we
to
have
policy.
to move on. President Trump.
Let's turn to policy, please.
Please.
To defund the police.
Why are
She
you letting
has
him
a
go?
Next
to
question,
confiscate
dude.
everybody's gun.
President
She
Trump,
has
we
a
have
plan
move
to
on to
not
other
Just
allow
going with the crazy.
in Pennsylvania or anywhere else.
Can't stop the crazy.
Plan
He's
is
telling the
just
facts.
recent.
This is what they're taking from us.
No, the
President
former
Trump-
president has said
No,
He's
something
speaking to us
I need
right
to
now.
respond to.
I'm sorry,
I
we're
just
going
need
to
to
move
respond
on, Vice
one
President
time
Harris.
to what he has
President
said
Trump,
multiple
this is
times.
now your third time running for president. You
Not
have
letting
long
her
vowed
go.
to repeal and replace the Affordable
those
Care
biased
Act,
mods,
also
y'all.
known as Obamacare. You have failed to accomplish that. You now say you're going to keep Obamacare, quote,
Still waiting on
unless
that
we
one
can do
fact check.
something much better. Last month,
Maybe
you
Trump
said,
just
quote, we're
says,
working on
more
it. So
retarded and
tonight,
fake shit.
9 years
Oh, I
after
got
you
a few
first
things
started
written down
running,
Kamala
do you
got
have a
really
plan?
wrong.
And can you tell us what it is?
Obamacare was lousy health care, always was. It's not very good today. And what I said, that if we come up with something, and we are working on things, we're going to do it and we're going to replace it. But remember this, I inherited Obamacare because Democrats wouldn't change it. They wouldn't vote for it. They were unanimous. They wouldn't vote to change it. If they would have done that, we would have had a much better plan than Obamacare. But the Democrats
Didn't
came
have a
up,
plan.
they wouldn't vote for it. I had a choice to make when I was president.
Kamala
Do I
inherited the,
save it and make
inflation.
You
it
had
as
nothing
good
to
as it can
replace it,
be?
you
Never
dumb
going to be
fuck.
great. Or do I let it rot? And I felt I had an obligation, even though politically it would have been good to just let it rot and let it go away. I decided, and I told my people, the top people, and they're very good people. I have a lot of good people in that administration.
The best
We read
people.
about the bad ones.
All
Some real
decided
bad
that
ones
they were
too,
gonna
and so do
endorse
they. They have really bad ones. The difference is they don't get rid of them. But let me just explain. I had a choice to make. Do I save it and make it as good as it can be, or do I let it rot? And I saved it. I did the right thing. But it's still never going to be great, and it's too expensive for people. And what we will do is we're looking at different plans. If we can come up with a plan that's going to cost our people, our population, less money, and be better health care than Obamacare, then I would absolutely do it. But until then, I'd run it as good as it can be run.
So just a yes or no, you still do not have a plan?
I have concepts of a plan. I'm not president right now. But
Concepts of a plan?
we come up with something, I would only change it if we come up with something that's better and less expensive. And there are concepts and options we have to do that. And you'll be hearing about it in the not too distant future.
Vice President Harris, in 2017, you supported Bernie Sanders' proposal to do away with private insurance and create a government-run healthcare system. 2 years later, you proposed a plan that included a private insurance option. What is your plan today?
Well, first of all, I absolutely support, and over the last 4 years as vice president, private healthcare options. But what we need to do is maintain and grow the Affordable Care Act. But I'll get to that, Lindsay. I just need to respond to a previous point that the former president has made. I've made very clear my position on fracking. And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away. So stop with the continuous.
Oh, yeah. Here we go.
As it relates to the Affordable Care Act, understand, let's just look at the history to know where people stand. When Donald Trump was president, 60 times he tried to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. 60 times. I was a senator at the time when I will never forget the early morning hours when it was up for a vote in the United States Senate. And the late, great John McCain, who you have disparaged as being, you don't like him, you said at the time, because he got caught. He was an American hero. The late, great John McCain, I will never forget that night, walked onto the Senate floor and said, no, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't get rid of the Affordable Care Act. You have no plan. And what the Affordable Care Act has done is eliminate the ability of insurance companies to deny people with pre-existing conditions. I don't have to tell the people watching tonight, you remember what that was like? Remember when an insurance company could deny if a child had asthma, if someone was a breast cancer survivor, if a grandparent had diabetes? And thankfully, as I've been vice president and we over the last 4 years have strengthened the Affordable Care Act, we have allowed for the first time Medicare to negotiate drug prices on behalf of you, the American people. Donald Trump said he was going to allow Medicare to negotiate drug prices. He never did. We did. And now we have capped the cost of insulin at $35 a month. Since I've been vice president, we have capped the cost of prescription medication for seniors at $2,000 a year. And when I am president, we will do that for all people, understanding that the value I bring to this is that access to health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. And the plan has to be to strengthen the Affordable Care Act, not get rid of it.
Vice President Harris,
in terms of where Donald Trump stands on that.
I want to move to an issue that's important for a lot
of... made a mistake. At number one,
y'all step
John
in.
McCain fought Obamacare for 10 years. But it wasn't only him. It were all of the Democrats that kept it going. And you know what? We can do much better than Obamacare, much less money. But she won't improve private insurance for people, private medical insurance. That's another thing she doesn't want to get. People are paying privately for insurance that have worked hard and made money, and they want to have private. She wants everybody to be on government insurance where you wait 6 months for an operation that you need immediately.
President Trump, thank you. We have another issue that we'd like to get to that's important for a number of Americans, in particular younger voters, and that's climate change. President Trump, with regard to the environment, you say that we have to have clean air and clean water. Vice President Harris, you call climate change an existential threat. The question to you both tonight is, what would you do to fight climate change? And Vice President Harris, we'll start with you. 1 minute for you each.
Well, the former president had said that climate change is a hoax. And what we know is that it is very real. You ask anyone who lives in a state who has experienced these extreme weather occurrences, who now is either being denied home insurance or it's being jacked up. You ask anybody who has been the victim of what that means in terms of losing their home, having nowhere to go. We know that we can actually deal with this issue. The young people of America care deeply about this issue. And I am proud that as vice president over the last 4 years, we have invested $1 trillion in a clean energy economy, while we have also increased domestic gas production to historic levels. We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president. We have invested in clean energy to the point that we are opening up factories around the world. Donald Trump said he was going to create manufacturing jobs. He lost manufacturing jobs. And I'm also proud to have the endorsement of the United Auto Workers and Sean Fain, who also know that part of building a clean energy economy includes investing in American-made products, American automobiles. It includes growing what we can do around American manufacturing and opening up auto plants, not closing them like happened under Donald Trump.
Vice President Harris, thank you.
That didn't happen under Donald Trump. Let me just tell you, they lost 10,000 manufacturing jobs this last month. It's going, they're all leaving. They're building big auto plants in Mexico, in many cases owned by China. They're building these massive plants, and they think they're going to sell their cars into the United States because of these people. What they have given to China is unbelievable. But we're not going to let that. We'll put tariffs on those cars so they can't come into our country, because they will kill the United Auto Workers and any auto worker, whether it's in
It's
Detroit or
effectively a
South
tax. It's not
Carolina
actually
or
a
any
tax.
other place. What they've done to business and
effectively a tax on the
manufacturing in
If you
this
don't buy the
country
product, it
is
doesn't affect you. It taxes
horrible.
everybody.
We have nothing because they refuse. You know, Biden doesn't go after people because supposedly China paid him millions of dollars. He's afraid to do it. Between him and his son, they get all this money from Ukraine. They get all this money from all of these different countries. And then you wonder, why is he so loyal to this one, that one, Ukraine, China? Why is he? Why did he get $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow's wife? Why did she pay him $3.5 million? This is a crooked administration, and they're selling our country down the tubes.
President Trump, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with closing statements from both of our candidates. An historic night, this ABC News presidential
I don't
debate
care about the
from
commercial.
Philadelphia.
Okay.
Back in a moment.
Again, point of privilege. This was a terrible segment overall for Trump. There was a couple missed opportunities at Kamala's end, right? But being asked, what's your plan? And saying, well, I have the concepts of a plan, is laughable. It's a laughable answer. It was perhaps, of all the things he said tonight, the most ludicrous.
The
and
funniest.
Again, right? he keeps making these there's no other word for it. Insane statements. Kamala's going to take all your guns. Kamala's going to bring in the people to eat your dogs. Kamala's is a Marxist, right? These are, we just have to say it, insanity. It's insanity.
So real quick on the first point, if you look at what he was saying before he said that I have concepts of a plan, what he said was, we don't have anything better right now, but if something comes up that is better than Obamacare, I would take it. But as of right now, I'm just going to run it the best way I could. I could have let it rot from the inside out, but I have a responsibility to the American people. So instead, we're going to run Obamacare better than the Democrats could. That was essentially what he said. If a better plan comes, I'll change to it. As of right now,
Answer, dude.
It is a weak answer, but it does provide a little context. And what was the second point you brought up?
Kamala is bringing in people to eat your dogs, and Kamala's in Marxist. And Kamala's going to take your guns. All your guns.
So
I get the guns.
Yeah, I don't know.
She's
why
not,
it's
though.
banned, yeah.
You actually
So she's advocating for an AR ban. That is taking guns.
Let's take a website. Yeah.
Okay, that's not what he said. He said Kamala's going to confiscate all your weapons.
Yeah, but
Guns.
okay,
You didn't say weapons.
hold on. The
He
argument
didn't say weapons. He did say guns, right? Kamala's going to take all your guns means he's going to like, this is what he does. He makes
Did he say all your guns, or did he say guns?
So
But hold on, it's a stepping stone, Wick. We all know it. So the first they start with the AR, next they come for the next thing, next they come. So that's what
Not
he's
even
saying.
that.
It's like it's already on the website. You can start with this.
The
If
assault
that gets
weapons
through,
ban.
we're
Yes,
coming for
I can-
more. Like
Okay,
The assault weapons ban would have banned all semi-automatic
hold on.
weapons that went through Congress.
Okay, hold on. I can provide like a clear fact on this because I've looked in the assault weapons ban since 2019. Okay, literally, I've been checking into this since I started politics. Basically, the assault weapons ban is what Kamala Harris supports, and that's why when she started to go into it, I was like, please don't go into this. This is not a winning issue. Do not go into it. because what it does is it essentially bans all AR-15s. However, it bans them from being purchased. Any AR-15 that has been in place since before that bill goes into place would not be
Yeah, no one's guns
confiscated.
are being taken.
No, they
She
will not be taken.
co-sponsored it. She co-sponsored that bill
Yes. Yes.
to
she
ban semi-automatic weapons, all
From
of them,
being purchased.
handguns included.
From
Yeah,
being
but again, if you own an AR-15 or not an AR-15, I'm sorry, if you own an assault rifle, right, and the ban goes through, they're not going to take it. Like, look, I'm
Yes.
against an
It's the
assault
first
rifle ban.
first
To be
step,
clear,
Billy.
no, I just want to be
First
clear.
step.
I'm against an assault rifle ban. I think that's a bad policy.
Right.
But this idea that they're going to confiscate your weapon is
Oh, come on,
It's
Will.
not
I
true.
just
Come
don't
on,
think it's
Will.
preposterous to say that
just-
like things she endorsed and co-sponsored while she was in Congress are her actual stances. Because like these are things she actually endorsed.
And like you act like it's like not like common for you to start with one thing and then you start doing more and more draconian things after that. Like this is clearly the
About,
start of the
like,
agenda.
COVID lockdowns and the.
I mean,
COVID
I would
passports,
agree with the
and they
COVID
said that,
lockdowns. I would listen. Yeah, I would
No,
agree
they
on
said
that.
that they were going to keep on.
You know, it's a
getting
test
worse
or
and worse.
something. You know what? I'm just saying, like people are like bashing some of the insane
Every single
statements
time
Trump is
someone
saying,
says
right?
the government's just going to keep on and keep on and keep on, it never fucking happens. But you guys keep
No,
on warning it's going to happen, but then it never fucking
You know,
happens.
it doesn't happen until it does happen, and that's the problem, right? You never know when it's going to go. Like, I mean,
yeah,
you know,
but
you
on
sounds
this
like
one,
a
I
cop
just
out,
like.
but it's like a slippery slope, you know. I mean, and like
I
I
know
would
it's
be
a slippery
complaining
slope,
if
but
Kamala
you
was
have to
saying
actually
Trump
show
is
that
a.
this is something that
Look,
happened.
I mean, to be also on the flip side, I think he's
show me the
dominated
slope.
on foreign policy. She's been not look good in foreign policy. That's definitely
think she's
surprising.
bad in foreign policy.
Something I think he's like surprisingly looked a lot stronger than I thought he was going to look on, and he's tied it all back to the border very well. So he's made foreign policy a domestic issue because most people don't not like vote on foreign policy.
He's tied
So, like,
economy to the border as
I'm
well.
sorry,
yeah, and
but,
he's tied
like,
economy, and
the-
so I think he's
if-
hitting some key
if
ones
you
there.
think that
And a lot of
I would
average
fix
people are thinking
everything
that.
with one phone call.
All right,
we're
fucking
back-
foreign
we're back in-
policy
it's
is-
gonna be closing
is
statements,
good,
too.
Like you're actually fucking retarded, but
Okay, let's hear the closing statements.
Donald Trump.
And when it ends, please join us for analysis of tonight's key moments. Our
We
team
don't.
will break
We're
it
gonna
down
skip the analysis.
as we
We're
enter
gonna-
the
we
final
are gonna
Senate to
analyze
election
that
day. We'll
shit,
go back
okay?
to debate and closing
Teamwork.
statements.
Live from the National Constitution Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Here again, David Muir and Lindsay Davis.
Welcome back tonight. The time has come for closing statements, and Vice President Harris, we begin with you.
So I think you've heard tonight two very different visions for our country. One that is focused on the future, and the other that is focused on the past, and an attempt to take us backward. But we're not going back. And I do believe that the American people know we all have so much more in common than what separates us. And we can chart a new way forward. And a vision of that includes having a plan, understanding the aspirations, the dreams, the hopes, the ambition of the American people, which is why I intend to create an opportunity economy, investing in small businesses, in new families, in what we can do around protecting seniors, what we can do that is about giving hardworking folks a break and bringing down the cost of living. I believe in what we can do together that is about sustaining America's standing in the world and ensuring that we have the respect that we so rightly deserve, including respecting our military and ensuring we have the most lethal fighting force in the world. I will be a president that will protect our fundamental rights and freedoms, including the right of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. I'll tell you, I started my career as a prosecutor. I was a DA, I was an attorney general, a United States senator, and now vice president. I've only had one client, the people. And I'll tell you, as a prosecutor, I never asked a victim or a witness, are you a Republican or a Democrat? The only thing I ever asked them, are you okay? And that's the kind of president we need right now. Someone who cares about you and is not putting themselves first. I intend to be a president for all Americans and focus on what we can do over the next 10 and 20 years to build back up our country by investing right now in you, the American people.
Vice President Harris, thank you. President Trump?
good.
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs, and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in. You believe in things like we're not going to frack. We're not going to take fossil fuel. We're not going to do things that are going to make this country strong, whether you like it or not. Germany tried that, and within 1 year, they were back to building normal energy plants. We're not ready for it. We can't sacrifice our country for the sake of bad vision. But I just ask one simple question. Why didn't she do it? We're a failing nation. We're a nation that's in serious decline. We're being laughed at all over the world. All over the world, they're laughed. I know the leaders very well. They're coming to see me. They call me. We're laughed at all over the world. They don't understand what happened to us as a nation. We're not a leader. We don't have any idea what's going on. We have wars going on in the Middle East. We have wars going on.
I'm pretty sure
Russia
Putin
and
probably
Ukraine.
is in
We're going to end up in a third world war.
What he said
and it'll
about
be a war
ending
like
the
no
Ukraine
other
war
because of nuclear
is
weapons,
a
the
Logan
power
Act
of
violation.
weaponry. I rebuilt our entire military. She gave a lot of it away to the Taliban. She gave it to Afghanistan. What these people have done to our country, and maybe toughest of all, is allowing millions of people to come into our country. Many of them are criminals, and they're destroying our country. The worst president, the worst vice president in the history of our country.
President Trump, thank you. And that is our
Christ.
ABC News presidential debate
Okay.
from here in Philadelphia at the National
I
Constitution
don't care
Center.
about this.
I'm
We're
Lindsay
gonna close the stream.
Yeah.
I have so many things I want to say.
Wow.
It's
Yes.
unreal.
We all do.
I
We
took
all
notes
do.
as
I
well,
know.
yeah.
I know.
I got a whole notepad
Even I took notes.
full of right. It's crazy. But before we get into that, I just wanted to remind people, if you've watched this content and you haven't liked the stream, why not? That seems like something a Marxist Putin lover would do. Like that stream, right? Subscribe to the channel. This is going to be semi-open. I do want to give all the people here a chance to have their say a little bit, but as we go, we will be bringing people on throughout the night. If I know you, we had a little kerfuffle, a little incident with unknowns recently coming in and doing naughty things. And so
Uh-oh.
I'm going to vet a little bit of the callers tonight, unfortunately. And I'm sad I have to do that, but this is what we have to do. So yeah. So first of all, before we get into initial reactions, I did get a wonderful super chat. A few of one for $100 from Audacity to say, can you feel my love rising from the heat above? The only way to make sure America heals is a forced union between Kamala and Trump, live stream 24/7 on MTV, brought to you by Cabela's. Love in the Oval Office, special guest Bill Clinton and JFK skull. Thank you for the $100, sir. $10 more from Audacity. TBF, the worst withdrawal this presidency has was the Chase Bank glitch. Hey, yo. Thank you for the additional $10. And then $2 from Fates, Canadian dollars, to say foreign funding. Thank you. Okay, that said, initial thoughts. Let's start with Tyler, and I'll end. So Tyler, thoughts?
Okie dokie. So, as I was saying, there's two things that the candidates have to earn. I don't think Trump blew it. What you were saying earlier, Wick, about these preposterous things. What he's doing is trying to define her by her 2020 policies, what she endorsed, what she co-sponsored, and trying to use that to say, look, these are her political instincts. She's lying to you. She's a phony. She'll tell you whatever she needs to, but these are what she goes for when she has her chance to vote. So it's fair in terms of we're handing somebody who's rather vague about her policy. She gave a lot of vague words. Like the closing statement was a good point, like opportunity and like the housing. I like her housing policy. I like her small business policy. She sounds like a moderate, like neocon, neoliberal. She basically came out as a conservative tonight on a lot of things, but she sounds moderately good on those issues. It's just I didn't get any detail. I want more. I want more of what she's going to do. She never said what she's going to do to fix the border. The reporter asked her a squish question that basically said, immigration was up for the first 3 years, but as we know now, it's down about 75%. You're doing a great job. You want to comment on that, or did I take care of it for you? It's like, it was pretty fucking crazy how the moderator kind of gave her that softball, but went after Trump. But otherwise, I think she did a really solid. Republican expectations completely blew him out of the water. She had a couple moments where she stammered and stuttered, probably didn't nail home her points as good as she should. There were a few missed opportunities where it looked like she was building up to a good insult and then just fumbled the ball. But other than that, I think she did very fucking good. And in a perfect world, I could easily see myself voting for her. Trump, I don't think really said anything preposterous enough that he made people think any differently of him than they did going into this.
Okay. Thank you for that. Gibbs.
Yeah. So first note I have is that I thought the bias was pretty egregiously obvious. One caveat to that, they did let Trump talk. Like, I will say that. Like, they didn't cut him off. They let him answer and rebuttal. Surprisingly, Trump wasn't really like butting in very often. I think somebody must have coached him up. So I was kind of impressed that like he would yell at the moderator, but he wouldn't like interrupt her. It didn't seem like. Also, I don't know if what I would do if I was on a presidential debate. Maybe this is why I'll never run for president, among many, many other reasons. But if someone shushed me on a presidential stage, I think I would probably have lost my shit. I don't know. I'd be like, shush, quiet, and I probably would lose it. I'm just saying.
Wait, when did that happen?
Yeah, he told her quiet, please, like in the
Yeah,
middle of
he
one
did.
of
There
them.
was,
Yeah,
there was 2 times that he used
The
that.
second time, it was more like 2015 Republican debate.
yeah.
Excuse me,
It
Jeb.
was pretty bad. I thought she looked nervous, but then she hit her stride really going into it. Some of the good ones I thought was the Trump sales tax she had going. I did wonder about why they didn't ever fact check the Project 2025 thing. He did exactly what I hoped he would do and hammered the border repeatedly. I think that's something, and then y'all kept saying the insane thing. Well, here's what's interesting to me is like, I've been like watching a lot of my normies people on the feed and they're all like resharing this. Like, this is exactly what we've been saying. This is exactly. So it's almost like there's like people that he's saying what they've been thinking. And it's just like, I don't know whether that's a good or bad thing, or if it's like saying he's only pandering to certain groups. But it's not like it's just in a vacuum. There are definitely people that are thinking what he's saying out loud, and they're like, finally, somebody that's saying this. Yeah, the gun stuff, I wish they had gone into more. And I don't know. I think the biggest thing I think he did that was a really good thing was waiting till the end, like after she didn't, and so when she didn't have a chance to rebuttal, was sitting, well, you've been here 3.5 years. Why didn't you do anything? Ending it on that note was a really high note for him, I think, to end it on. And her not being able to answer that, I think that was good strategy on his part, really.
Yeah, because she couldn't. Well, fair enough. Yeah, like it was literally the closing statement, but fair. Blackwood, please.
Yeah, so my general analysis here is I think Harris did generally fine. I think she did do better than Trump, which I predicted before this debate. Polymarket more or less reflects this. They're tied now, but beforehand he was up on her 3%. So he's dropped 3%, and she's gained 3%. So that's significant, right? That is a significant reflection of kind of how the betting markets can take in this, and I do think that we're going to see projections reflect this over the next coming weeks. I don't think it was an absolute catastrophe, though. I think this is not like Biden's obliteration in the last debate. And keep in mind, a lot of the people that are going to be saying that Kamala just crushed him are the same people who are saying, "Yeah, Biden did pretty good last time," which we were saying no, he didn't do well, and we turned out to be correct on this. But as one of the people who was correct on this, take my word on this. Harris did, I think, overall win this debate, but it wasn't a complete catastrophe. I think both sides did dodge questions at times. Trump did his normal thing of kind of going over the same points over and over again. He was more energetic, I thought, than in the Biden debate, which I think did do him some favors, but obviously his opponent was tougher. The dogs point was a bad point, but it was also sort of hilarious. And so I don't know how well that particular point is going to work like politically for Kamala, because they're going to show that and then people are just going to laugh and remember Trump. The moderators were absolutely biased. And this is, I think, how conservatives will cope with the fact that Kamala did win this debate. I think even the moderators weren't biased. Kamala would still probably have done, edged it. But the moderators were biased, right? We saw constant fact checking on Trump, but Kamala wasn't fact checked at all. The Very Fine People comment, which I've debated on Wix multiple times, which was admitted by Snopes to be a lie, which the people who I've debated on this told me that yes, it was a lie, and apologized to me for saying that I was a liar by pointing out that it was a lie. That wasn't questioned at all at any point during the debate. Project 2025, the lies there weren't questioned at all. The fact checks against Trump were also somewhat questionable, like the FBI one. Trump actually does have a point that the recent FBI crime statistics are omitting some data, and it's not exactly clear. I mean, yes, the statement of the FBI is that crime is overall down, but it's not exactly clear when you factor in the missing data if that is the case. Also, it didn't sound like sarcasm. I don't think that's a proper fact check. If the moderator believes that it doesn't sound like sarcasm, seemed pretty ridiculous. Her policies were not dug into. Trump actually had to ask the 9th month abortion question. He did dodge the abortion question as well. And then she dodged it, but the moderators didn't do anywhere near the same level of grilling on her. They asked him the same question 3 times over, and he didn't answer it. He had to bring up the 9th month abortion question, which, by the way, his vice president did sign a law that allowed abortion into the 9th month, but this wasn't gone into at all. She looks like a reptile a little bit when she smiles. I don't know if you guys see it. I saw this multiple times.
Okay. Let him finish, but that's a left turn from the analysis.
I'm just going over my notes, right? Because I noticed this multiple times. Like
I just imagine
she
on
did
his
this
notes.
thing, especially she did this.
What's it? Her eyes blink like sideways instead of up and down or something?
They could have. Like I noticed it multiple times. It was especially apparent when Trump said the "I'm talking" bit, and she did this weird smile, and she arched her neck back, and she smiled, and she looked down, and she looked just like a lizard. It was very unnerving.
I was convinced after DeSantis, so maybe if she's on the other side, I wouldn't be too surprised.
She did look very lizard-like. But the last thing I'm going to say real quick, Hassan was brought up, and Hassan said something on Twitter that I actually think is kind of a good point. He said, quote, "The immigration panic narratives make Trump sound insane, but the fact that the Dems aren't countering even a little bit of this narrative is genuinely alarming." Trump kept going back to immigration because that's his point. That's what he does. And yes, it was obnoxious at times, and it was tired at times. But did anybody actually hear a substantive rebuttal? Did anybody was there anything that was presented on one of the most pressing political issues of the day whatsoever from Kamala? I can't think of a single thing.
The moderator
and the moderators didn't even really push her too much.
She said that her policy would be the one that Donald Trump shot down.
She
was hitting on that point. That's how she led into it. Like
the bipartisan bill, bill that was shut down.
Legislation. What's the DHS going to do? What's the executive branch going to do?
Did she talk about that at all, or did she?
That's how
I'm going to do it.
That's how the topic when the topic brought up, that's how she opened with it. That I supported and wanted a bipartisan bill that would.
And I would bring back that bill if put in my desk, I would sign it. That's how she led into it. So she did answer that question.
I'll have to go back and rewatch that point. It didn't sound like a solid answer. Because I thought she deflected by talking about his rally sizes, right? That's what I thought it was.
No, that was later on a little bit, yeah. That shit was a little bit funny, though.
Is that it, Locktoid?
Yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Okay.
Console, please.
I think that it wasn't a total disaster for Trump, but I think that he did a couple of things that are going to get memed into oblivion. I think that that's probably not something that's going to look good for him with the eating of the dogs and shit. I just don't know why, if that was something that he decided to do just right then, or if for some reason, like, he has Zika babies as his fucking like debate handlers, and they told him definitely talk about eating the dogs. I don't know whose decision it was, but it was fucking crazy to do that. So that's a massive L right there. I think Trump at times when he started getting more combative, sometimes it seemed a little bit justified, but the more he did it, the more it felt like he was being a little bit of a bitch. Listen, I'm a little high. I'm just gonna say it like it is. He acted like a little bit of a bitch up there sometimes when he kept on interrupting constantly. The moderator should have reeled that in. And I also think that they should have pressed the two of them on those couple of questions that y'all talked about as well. Yeah. But other than that, I think that Kamala came out on top. Probably like I for expectations going in, I would say she probably performed about like a 7.5 to an 8 if I'm being super generous. Trump was at he wasn't at Trump 10, man. He wasn't at Trump 10. He was like at Trump 4.5, 0.75.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Anything else from us, Hansel?
No.
No.
I'm
4.75. You just ride.
4.75.
You're riding your wave.
I think
Okay.
I think Sansal's at a 4.75.
Brother, I'm high, okay?
Yeah, no, I get you.
I give him 6.2 out of 8.3.
There you go.
What do you got for us, the Dockhouse show, please?
Man, let me tell you what. So first of all, let the record reflect that I was correct that he was going to continuously go back to the immigration issue. Hold on one second.
Okay. Well, while he's gone, let me just give my
Sorry, my dog was whining, and I
Oh,
could hear her, and it was
back
during
now,
minutes.
he's back
Okay,
now.
I'm sorry. So yeah, she was let the record reflect that Trump was going to continuously go back to the immigration issue. I had a feeling he was going to continue to do this. The other thing that I thought was really interesting, and I don't know if anybody else noticed this, is that she would continuously look at the camera. She wanted to speak to you, and this was definitely a debate coach thing that she was like, they were telling her, look at the camera, make sure you find it, make sure you're speaking straight to the American people. She continuously used that word, the American people. I think there was another word that she used. Let me get it pulled up here because I had it pulled up. She said she used
Opportunity economy.
Opportunity economy was a big one. She used opportunity economy a lot. And so what I felt was this. At the end of the debate, it was down to two things. I think Trump started with his debate coaching and then just slowly lost control of it. It was like a runaway train. He just like, I'm going to go off script. Screw it. I'm throwing it away. And then I think that Kamala Harris ended up taking her debate coach serious, like her debate prep extremely seriously. So it's a tale of two different cities. Do you like the off script kind of candid response, or do you like the scripted response? The thing about Donald Trump, though, is that a lot of his policies, it was basically, I'm not Kamala. That was something I kept picking up on. And his conclusion, his final response was exactly that. It's like, she messed up the economy. She did this. She did that. And you're kind of left, okay, great. She did this. What are you going to do? And it was nothing. It was just, she's messing it up. She's messing up. She's starting foreign war. She did this. It's like, that's cool. But I expected that because that is how Trump's campaign is operating right now. It's all on mudslinging and little policy. And he's got the thing about it, which is crazy, is he has a policy up on his website. But I didn't see much of that. It was very, very watered down. So it depends on how you viewed this. I think you take away from this that, in my opinion, Kamala won. I think she won this on policy. She won this on speaking to the American people. And I think she was much more composed than Donald Trump, who the moderators, let me just tell you, let him get away with a lot of stuff. Just let him go on and on and on. It's like, you're sitting there. Why are you not cutting off? Like, what's the point of having a mic cut if you're not going to cut his mic? I didn't see anybody get their mic cut, except, if I'm being quite frank, Kamala Harris felt like she got her mic cut a few times, or at least it was muted. And it's like, so you could say that they were biased because of that one fact check, but they definitely gave Trump a lot more leeway in that debate. So,
okay, thank you. So, gonna echo a few sentiments here. Policy wise, and I have extensive notes. I can share it with the class if anyone wants to see. But the biggest thing that Kamala did that impressed me at first was her being specific about certain policies. Obviously, debate stage is not a place to go into grand detail here, but the $50K tax benefit for new businesses, that's a good plan, right? When she talks about her, let's see, the border bill and citing the border bill, also specific policy, a good plan. You can not like these things or like these things, but these are solid points. Unfortunately, as the debate went on, specifics went out the window, policy went out the window, right? For all these things. She did return to it a time or two, right? But Trump, in comparison, there was no policy prescribed. Not a single policy, except for he would end the war in Israel and Ukraine. He doesn't tell us how, except for he would make a phone call and it would stop. Other than that, he did not talk about specific policies at all. He made several claims, such as I actually won in 2020. He doubled down on that. He said that what he said during the Lex Friedman interview was sarcasm, quote unquote. When he talked about our country has gone to hell, me try to overthrow the government. What about all the illegal aliens? Was a wild deflection, a wild dodge. Talking about afterbirth baby executions, talking about they're eating the dogs. Kamala will cause World War III. Kamala is a Marxist who will end our country and make it Venezuela on steroids. These are all very extreme things to say with, I don't think, any backing whatsoever. So again,
what do you mean no backing? What do you mean no backing?
Okay.
Just some backing.
Kamala, honestly, be honest with me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. It does seem like some of that. Yeah, I see her as much more likely to start World War III, in my opinion.
No, he didn't say she's more likely to start World War III. He said Kamala will cause World War III.
Yeah, I mean, it's a conclusion that I could come to.
Okay, I don't take that seriously.
I mean, I don't care if you take it seriously. This is what I keep saying. I think that you're wrong, and I'm going to tell you why I think that you're wrong. It's real simple. There's a large segment of the U.S. that y'all are just dismissing, and Trump is saying these things, and this is what they're thinking. They're like, hey, I've been thinking this for a while, and now whether or not that's going to play well, we'll see. But there is a large group of people that are coming to this conclusion.
Sarcastic when he said on the Lex Friedman interview that
no, it's obviously dishonest. Some of the things you mentioned, others are hyperbole that are kind of fair game, but there are definitely things you said that are flat out dishonest.
Can we acknowledge?
Hold on. One thing about Trump though is he already has his policy established, right? And I know you were saying, hey, he didn't go into detail. My thing is we pretty much know what his policy is. Sure, but okay, that's fair. You should have mentioned it. But he definitely we already know what his policies are prescribed. I think there's just a difference, when you don't have to hold him to that. Yeah, hold on, I don't think there's
his policy is get rid of the Mexicans, build the wall,
don't eat dogs.
Don't eat dogs. Yeah, you're right, sure. But my point is, it's not like Kamala, where we are very new to what her policy is, and we're guessing. Yeah, Kamala, whatever her name is. I'm just saying, Miss Harris, President-elect Harris, or wannabe-elect Harris, or whatever she's gonna be. Who knows? That person. Listen, we don't know what her policy is. It's very vague, right? It's nebulous. We've argued about it, and she's kind of put forth some stuff, and so we have to go off her record, which is still nebulous. And so I don't think that she really gave she gave specifics
about her record.
She is pretty. I don't know what her stance on immigration.
I have to go here in 2 seconds.
She already said.
You know it off the top of your head?
Wait, can we just acknowledge?
No, you're saying that it's the reason. No, I didn't say that I knew it off the top of my head, but you said that it's nebulous. But if it's
you don't know.
I read her policy page. It looks
what does nebulous mean to you? Is it or is just any fact that's anything in the world that is an unknown fact to you is nebulous?
No, I mean hers is hard to peg down. Nobody really knows what it is.
Everybody knows what her policy is. Google it.
It's public fucking record.
What is she going to do on the border?
Exactly.
She said that she's going to. She supports the immigration plan that they were.
Okay, wait.
Congress is allowing.
Okay, hold on.
What is her DHS going to do? What is her
I can address this. I can address this. So one of the things that she's looking to try to do is trying to reform some of our justice system for the judges and things of that nature. She's also looking to bring back the bipartisan bill as well. That's part of it. I could go back to her
legislation.
Sure,
that's
yeah.
not what the president is. I want to know what her DHS is going to do.
If you want something like that, then I would have to go and look at exactly when she talked about immigration. Because
Trump's policy page says that he has what executive orders he's going to do, exactly what his DHS is going to do. We don't even know what.
Can we acknowledge? Because I have to go in 2 seconds, so I really want to ask this because this is I'm very curious. Very curious.
And I see you guys waiting backstage. We'll pull you on after. Yeah.
I'm very curious what y'all's opinions are, though, on these potential Logan Act violations. Because I thought that was really interesting how he's like, oh, yeah, I've talked to the president of Ukraine or something. And then he was like, at the very end of it, he's like, I will go and talk to President Putin before I even get into office. I'm like, I don't know about that, Chief. I don't know if you
Well,
can
no,
do.
it was stronger than that. He said he's on the phone with world leaders all the time. They call him
Yeah.
contact.
You're allowed to talk to world leaders, but if you're negotiating something political, it could be a violation of the law.
Yeah, that just raised red flags for me. Well, first of all, it's eminently believable to me that him, Putin, Viktor Orban, all these people regularly talk. That is eminently believable to me, right? He didn't mention which leaders, right? But I can see it. And he's the one that said it. So yeah, Logan.
I'm sorry, I don't believe him. I think he talked to like Viktor Orban and he said that shit to him, and now he's exploding it to I talked to all these leaders, all the fucking he talked to one fucking leader and they told him something that he wanted to hear, and now he's sucking his own dick over it. Okay.
I don't think there's ever been any report of a bad relationship with Zelensky. I don't think they've ever said anything bad about each other.
There was a controversy, if I recall
there was-
correctly. If I recall correctly,
Yeah,
there
about
was a controversy.
Trump threatening him over the phone.
Yeah.
To
Holding
investigate
Crane.
something.
Holding
Yeah,
aid.
he said it was a very fine phone call, and Zelensky didn't say anything negative about it.
Yeah, because he was terrified that he wasn't going to get the weapon shipments because Russia
He
was
ended up
already
getting the
inside
weapon
of
shipments
Ukraine.
Oh, I love that. I
By the
will.
time the impeachment started.
I will. No, hold on. Gibbs, last thing. I promise. Last thing. I will say this. I loved how detailed Kamala Harris was on like what kind of aid she gave to Ukraine. Where she's like, I gave them M1 Abrams, I gave them javelins, I gave them this. I was like, okay. Meanwhile, Trump's like, the Taliban took you out with a sniper. It's like, whoa, wait a minute, what? Oh, why so specific? Wait,
It is good because
I just think he tacked it on at the end because snipers are scary.
one of his points that he's been saying at his rallies is that he was the one that started selling Ukraine lethal weapons, and Joe Biden stopped that in order to negotiate with Russia. So her saying we're selling them lethal weapons kind of cuts his point out at the heels. So it's good.
Yep. All right, well, guys, I got to get out of here.
I know you got to go. Where can people find you guys?
I'm the Doghouse Show. You can find me on Twitter, X, TikTok, because I'm blowing the fuck up on TikTok. I'm becoming a TikToker, which I do not like. And I am also on YouTube. So wherever you want to find me, just search the Doghouse Show and just make sure it's not like a questionable website. Because I promise I am not doing that kind of stuff yet. Okay. Anyways.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
I'll see you later.
All right, later, guys.
Oh. Hey, Doghouse.
Hello.
Hey guys.
We're gonna get more people, I think.
Yeah, y'all are about to go in there. So
Are we?
yeah, y'all are probably about to go in there. I'm getting off right now. You just dragged me in here.
Hey.
Yeah, what's up?
Can somebody
I
look
need to
at
DM Sonsol. He needs to not leave. I wanted to fucking talk shit to him in there.
Sansol's like high as a kite, anybody. He's about to dip out.
Sonsol?
All right, guys. I got to dip out. Later, guys.
Sonsol, what the
Alrighty, guys. So great stream. Guys, if you're watching this after the fact on YouTube, please make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification bell, and I will see you guys on Friday. Friday, we're going to be doing another stream, guys. Can't wait to see you guys.